Well. G'day, guys. I better put this on as well. I forgot this. My Merry Christmas thing. Merry Christmas to everyone. Unfortunately, Baldman bad and Ted can't make it. Unfortunately. So it's only going to be me today. Sorry, guys. I'll just share my screen and you'll understand what I mean. I just got a message from Bart. He's having computer problems. So pretty much, sorry, mate, can't join you. So he's got problems with sharing his mic and camera, and he can't get anything to work properly. So unfortunately, he won't be here. Shit happens. So anyway, you've got lovely me to put up with. So Merry Christmas, everyone, and a ho 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 to you all. Anyway, Nick can't make it. You know what I actually think happened to Bart? Ted heard that I had a little Tassie devil and I was going to chew his head off. And he actually went weak at the knees and chewed Bart's cable. I suspect that's what happened. That's why it's all gone pear-shaped over in Kiwi land. As I told him, you need to lock Ted up. He just can't get around that concept. G'day, Elizabeth. Yes, we don't have the bald man, unfortunately. It's all gone pear-shaped over there, as I showed you in the email. So, shit happens, as they say. G'day, Shelley. Merry Christmas to you as well. Yeah, I was hoping we would have a bit of a comedy type session. It wouldn't be, questions and answers and all that, and it'll be a sort of a 2-hour. But anyway, you'll have to put up with this character. Better than nothing. No bad man. Good to have you here, mate. Loki. How are you, mate? If you feel like it, I did send you a link as well. So if you feel like it, pop in. If not, Merry Christmas to you as well. Margarita, Merry Christmas to you. I did notice this morning your email. I haven't replied yet. I will reply on Monday. Tomorrow's Christmas for us I'm here, and this afternoon I'm sort of busy with other engagements, so I will get back to you. Merry Christmas to you and your sister. Oops. Oh. Yeah, hold your horses, Babs. Commodore, it's been a while. Merry Christmas to you as well. And Ball Man Bad. Oh, well, shit happens. Hey, it's a Greek donkey. What's wrong with you? Don't you know how to mount a Greek donkey? Learn to mount a Greek donkey, my dear friend. Yeah. And stop your excuses. It's probably Ted that's actually chewed your cable. Merry Christmas to you as well. Shelley, always a pleasure. Merry Christmas to you. Darkfield Carnivore. It's not morning. It's nearly Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. And be naughty. It's the time to be not merry, but naughty. G'day, mate. How's it going? Good to have you here from Thailand. Thanks, mate. Thanks. Merry Christmas to you as well. Hello, Kitty. It's easier for me to use StreamYard, you know that. Oh, God. I'll probably have to do something in the future. I think the annoying thing that I find with Restream, Bart, is that you don't get any early comments is a bugger. You can't feed them through. You know, none of these services seem to have all the issues sorted out. They seem to, you know. And last time I even had myself, I tried actually running StreamYard to test something at work, and then it locked me out at home. I had to reset everything. So yeah, it can be a bit of a nightmare with some of these services. Anyway, if you feel like giving it another go and seeing whether you get lucky, fine. If not, thanks for trying at least. Um, you know, maybe let me know, about the New Year's Eve as well. I don't know what your plans are. At the moment, I'm not locked into anything in the daytime. In the evening, probably walk down to the waterfront, but in the daytime, I'm pretty much going to be free. I haven't locked myself into anything. And most, like Brother Sean, he's interstate. He's gone to Sydney to be with his sister, and a few others have gone interstate as well. At most, my sister's talking about, my two sisters are talking about coming down or be potentially going up after Christmas, after New Year's. So it's pretty much, I'm not going to have too many engagements, so to speak. So it's a bit of a different, for me, like last year, it was quite engaging, and I had a lot of things. But this year, there's a lot of people that have gone. Even some of the people that I usually hang out with in this period have either gone to the East Coast or West Coast or somewhere else with their families to Fraser Nave, for instance, which is a national park, other parts, and yeah, just it's probably because of so many lockdowns, so many just being contained in the city. People just want to get out of it completely. I don't blame them. So it's probably the reason. So I'll have to find more things to amuse myself with. Ben, Merry Christmas to you as well. Can just get a new power supply? Never heard of anyone having so many issues. Well, I think at the same time, I keep my systems pretty simple. I've got a webcam, sort of this device. They're all USB connected. And even if it goes haywire, sometimes all I have to do is just reboot the thing. Bart's actually got a lot of things because he's got like a studio. I don't have a studio. It's just a proper studio with a lot of components. And the more components you have, when it works, it looks pretty good and professional. I mean, I would love to have all those little features come up and, have where you could just bring things up or put audio stuff through and stuff like that, or that would be great, to be able to do that. It's a really professional, really well orchestrated look when it works, but when it goes haywire, yeah. And maybe he needs to consider a better power supply unit if there's a lot of things that are connected to his equipment, to his computer. You may need more power than really the standard, the model. You may have to look into that. So that may be an issue as well. I don't know. I don't know his complete setup. I just have seen it recorded, but not to be able to really comment in any significant way. But the more moving parts you have in any system, yeah, the more likely you're going to have more issues. So, which is another problem. Dunno. Yes. Intimidated by the Tassie Devil, I suspect. Oops. Yeah, I actually tried setting up an OBS ages ago, and I started having problems with some software and stuff like that, and I found it. Yeah, I mean, it's good to be able to do a lot of things with it, but at the same time, if it goes bad, it really goes bad, and then it's really hard to get it to work. Uh, you're in the tropics. He probably doesn't like. Well, are you providing him with carnivore cookies to turn up, Loki? You gotta provide him with the right stuff. G'day, Lemmy. How are you, mate? Yes. God bless you as well, and Merry Christmas to you as well and your family. Mm. Yes, yes, they can be. That's true. Very true. Sarah, how are you? Merry Christmas to you as well. Sarah Sapien, wannabe homesteader. Ah, it's good to have goals and ambitions in life. Goals are very important. Valerie, Merry Christmas to you as well. Question, uh, how do you end up in Tasmania from Greece? That's like Santa going down the North Pole. Don't ask me, my old man ended up here. Well, blame my mother and dad's uncle. So how does it go? The story goes, my father was actually about to marry a lady on one of the islands that he met when he was a soldier serving on one of the islands. Her brother didn't like my father, and so sabotaged that relationship. And so dad ended up single again. Then he moved back to Athens, and then he went back to his village, and then he again got a job with an American company, Kaiser, and sort of worked on the hydro schemes. Then his uncle kept on pestering him, why don't you get married and all that? Because back then they used to do that. It was family would pressure the sons to get themselves married and stuff like that. And then he met up with my mother before she left for Australia. Her brother had actually left and gone to Australia. And his idea, he'd gone to Melbourne, and then there was an opportunity that came up in Tasmania, and he shipped over, not flew, shipped over to from the north part, and then came down to the capital, set up a business. And when my grandmother died, he contacted my mother, who was still in the village, and told her, come out to Australia. So she was encouraged to come to Australia. And her brother and dad's uncle were good friends. And they were communicating between each other via letters. And dad had met mum, and he said, oh, she's a nice lady. So he was interested, but he was not interested in moving to Australia at all. Dad didn't want to, he didn't mind traveling. He moved around the islands and did stuff like that, but he just didn't want to go that far away from Greece. He had a good job working at that stage in the shipbuilding industry. Had moved from the hydro schemes to the shipbuilding industry. He was getting well paid, because back then, working in the shipbuilding industry as a boilermaker welder, you were well paid. You were above the average salary. You were nearly a sort of a professional salary in equivalent today's time. So why would you? There was no financial incentive for him to leave, even though Australia at the time was trying to poach Europeans to come and work in Australia, to try and build up the population with Europeans. At the time, that was a sort of policy. Populate or perish was the sort of buzz cry back then. And so, it's no different than America tried to bring a lot of Europeans in to sort of populate the Americas, North America. Same thing happened in Australia at the time. And so there was this big push to bring immigrants from Europe. But, Dad didn't have an incentive to go. But he sort of decided to come out for one and only reason to marry my mother, work a couple of years, and then leave and go back to Greece. So his intention wasn't to stay in Australia at all, you know. So his intention was to basically marry my mother and then basically bring her back to Greece. That was his intention. Getting here, he sort of then, mum was initially, until dad got his ticket to be able to work here and get his, and because they didn't recognize his qualifications, so he had to go back and learn with very poor English, so it was really a struggle. Mum had to work for a period of time, and she worked out at the I think it was the restaurant of the casino, I think it was, or the one that before they built I can't remember now. It's a while ago. It was, I think it was related to that anyway. And Dad eventually got a ticket because once he actually started working, they gave him a position on the bridge, the Tasman Bridge, to work as a boilermaker welder because they were building the bridge back then. And he also finished his qualifications about the same time, a bit earlier than around about before the bridge was finished. He actually finished his qualification. And even though his English was quite poor, he still managed to get 83%. But they recognised him as a really good, they actually offered him a position at the TAFE College to teach young apprentices how to really do professional welding, because Dad was really well qualified. He'd actually been he'd actually had a lot of experience in that regard. He was also in the military. He was a motor mechanic. He actually qualified as a motor mechanic. That was his initial job, and then sort of moved on to boilermaker welding. But then when he got to here, like any, you start building a family. Mum got pregnant with my sister Dora, and so then it becomes much harder to leave. You're sort of financially, constrained and all that, and so he started slowly but surely building up, and getting, you could say, enjoying living in Tasmania, so to speak. It was so he didn't mind it. He started to, where before he wasn't interested, then he sort of changed a bit. Then over time, start having a family. They go to school. It's much harder then to move. And then they they bought a business and built a corner store. But Dad rented it out initially, and then later we took it over. He'd brought his brother over as well, his younger brother, Nick. And so there was a bit more family here, and Dad was very close to my uncle Nick. They were very close. Even when they were in Athens as youngsters, they'd hang around. They'd go to the clubs together and all that sort of stuff. So it was like the two of them like that, So he was much closer to his younger brother Nick than his twin brother Thimio, who passed away recently. But it was strange things happen. You don't know where you can end up. You try or go to another place, and your life just takes a different course. You get involved with other people you sort of, I wouldn't call it trapped, but you become part of a different society, a part of a different life. Your life has all these forks in the road, and where you end up, you may plan one thing and end up somewhere else. It's just the way life is, Bob. I think many people have had similar experiences, probably. So. But I mean, Dad then did go back in the 70s, in the late sort of 70s, and we sort of stayed there for nearly about 6 years. I did my high school over there, because I left here when I just started high school at Newtown High. So I'd only been at high school in Australia for about 3 months, and then I was pretty much went over there to school. Then did my schooling there, then came back after 6 years. But such is life. And now, because Dad's had, most of his friends were in Australia. There's a big Greek community down here. There was probably of the original community about 2,000 odd people, and that's obviously grown into many thousands because they're children and grandchildren or whatever. So yeah, so he's, you eventually get part of that society and that community. Most of his friends are in the Greek community, and a number of non-Greeks that he's got a number of Anglo-Australians, Serbian Australians. He's got a very close Serbian Australian friend. Then he's got a couple of Italian friends. He's got one younger bloke who's in his middle age, so Dad's his sort of senior, and he's into he's got a sort of a vineyard and stuff like that, and certain things that, and Dad sort of helps him out. He does a lot of grafting and stuff like that. So yeah, so he still does it, or all that sort of stuff. Dad's really good at grafting. He can combine any. He's like a magician when it comes to grafting. There's even some horticulturalists that have basically employed him in the past, even when he was sort of retired. They just would go around and get him to do some welding work or some grafting work, because so there's a number of horticulturalists there, like their sheds and their hothouses. Dad welded all of those and did a lot of their grafting as well. So so he's well known. When Dad goes, there won't be enough people that will be able to fit in the church. There'll be so many people that will turn up, and I mean, half of them will be non-Greeks. He knows so many people. He's got a bigger network than I ever had or have. He knows more people, and more people know him. So when you're so well known, I mean, Dad just walks past and people just wave at him all the time. So he's part of this society now. He's, when you have so many people that know you. Yeah. So obviously, he probably regrets that he didn't have a chance to basically chat with his twin brother before he passed away. But he sort of expected, I'll go later on, and Theothymia will still be around. But yeah, unfortunately, Theothymia did, let's say, smoke and booze quite a bit, and burnt the candle at both ends. So he enjoyed life, but it was very different than my father. So yeah. G'day, mate. How's it going? Merry Christmas to you as well, Christian. I was born here, yes, and both of my sisters were as well, in Tasmania. Yes, definitely born here. Australian Fearless, Merry Christmas to you as well. George, Merry Christmas. Καλά Χριστούγεννα, χρόνια πολλά. Dark field. It's not a power issue, Faye. I'm not there, so I can't comment. I have no empirical evidence of what's happening in your studio. Oh, that's true. That's true. Yes. The Supreme Leader, RFB 321, the Supreme Leader, show your respect. How dare you? She's a lovely lady, just in case she's got any agents in the vicinity. You got to cover yourself. Apparently, she's got a bit of a mean streak. Okay, that cold. It's quite warm here. It's quite humid. I should have turned the fan on. It's now that I've put this on, I'm starting to feel a bit sweaty on my head. But anyway, we'll persevere. Yeah, I've got the wind, and it usually beams through. But luckily, it's not as. It's a bit overcast. That's why I'm not getting so much light coming through. I remember once I had to put the sunnies on. It was so severe. But yeah, hopefully, I'm actually, yeah, I'm thinking about getting some sort of thing that I can put on like a shield here, so I'm not basically bathed in light. I want it to be lighter, but obviously the daytime, but at the same time it can be a bit glary. Today, luckily, it isn't, thankfully. But yes, we in the southern hemisphere are enjoying very nice weather. You guys are freezing your butts off, from what I realise. And your energy was probably expensive, but then you've got the warm and cuddly feeling from your dear illustrious leader, demented Biden. So, I mean, you've got that to console yourselves with those expensive power bills. UAE Biff, how are you, mate? I missed you. You didn't turn up at the Zoom session. I thought you would turn up. I was going to ask you because I got some information quite a few weeks ago about some secret. This is through some context that I've got in Greece, but some secret sort of exercise that the Israelis with the Americans were doing, only them two in the Red Sea, and they were mimicking certain operations that they may conduct in the basically the Gulf. So I was trying to find out whether you had seen any ship movements or whatever, whether anything's afoot or not. So yeah, do drop in. I will be there later. I'd like to find out because I can't get any more information, and a few people are being cagey about the information as well. So that's making me think even more that something's afoot. Are they trying to start with Netanyahu some sort of episode in order to cut the supplies of drones and other things to the Russians? That's another angle that I'm thinking of, potentially. It's not enough that we've got enough energy crises. Who knows what they're trying to set up again. So we'll see what happens. But I would like to know more if you've seen anything in the vicinity. So you're definitely in North America, freezing your butt off? Yes, yes. What did the dyslexic Christian do? He sold his soul to the Santa. Oh, nice one. Oh, I sold mine to the Tassie Devil. That's what must have happened. Dennis, Merry Christmas to you as well, mate. Sandra, always a pleasure. Merry Christmas. Well, you'll be freezing your butt off there. The scorn of a Greek woman is unlike anything you can imagine. You're suffering, are you? Yes, yes, they can be quite tough. My mother was. Stefan, Merry Christmas to you as well, mate. Okay, pressure concerning. Not sure what's up with me recently for the reading of two separate occasions. It may be stress. It may be stress, I'd say, for to be that high. Yes. You did have that recent issue in your life that happened, which possibly has caused you a lot of stress. We've talked about. I won't mention it here, but anyway, yeah. So psychological stress can induce those sort of things, and you are currently under a bit of psychological stress with some of those things that are happening in your life, but I won't mention anything here. So yeah, I wouldn't really worry about it. In order to get a proper basal sort of level of knowing where your blood pressure is, you've got to have your arms at the relaxed in the same level as your heart, and you've got to be your whole body's relaxed. Don't talk, don't say anything. There's actually a procedure. The Mayo Clinic have got an exact procedure how you do it. You're not supposed to be talked to. You've got to be completely relaxed in order to get the right measurement. And most people don't do it properly. They get all sorts of funny measurements. So if you're stressed out of your mind and you're taking a measurement, yeah, it's gonna be high. So, and you're not relaxed, so yeah, it's the wrong time to take a measurement under those sort of conditions. You're gonna get a false measurement reading. Just it's like going out and doing exercise and then taking a measurement. Well, it's gonna be high. What do you expect? Yes, nothing like a meaty extra. Dad's actually doing lamb roast. Oh, God, I love his lamb roast. It's so tender. He does it so beautifully that he just tenderizes it. It's just incredible the way he does it. And he doesn't even have a sous vide, and he does it as, in the same tender way. And he's, oh, God. Yes, yes. I'm looking forward to that tomorrow. Yummy. Zach, Merry Christmas to you as well. Travelled up to Sydney for Kruse. Yeah, what they mean by Kruse in Australia is Christmas. And the weather is a treat. Yeah, which is good weather. Would there be any harm in using zinc on a sunblock just for my nose? You're really getting into the Christmas spirit, aren't you, Zach? What about a red nose? Go for the red nose option, mate. That'd be truly. Oh, anyway, let me move away from my Australiana. Look, mate. Yeah, it's not something that you want to be putting chemical stuff on your body continuously. But if you do it once, nah, it's not going to be, the end of the world. Your body still has a liver to detox those sort of things, but it's not something that I'd be constantly putting on myself. Well, maybe that's why you've upset her. Oops, that was a Freudian slip, George. Cooking some meat in a weird air fryer. I miss the nice shears on the cast iron, but the meat is juicy. Yeah, look, I think recently I was trying to think who actually had a video. Kelly Hogan. Kelly Hogan had a little short thing where she was doing an air fryer thing, and she'd put it in for she set it up for 15 minutes. She did a 5-minute warm up. Then after 5 minutes, she put the steak in. She did another 5 minutes, and then she turned it over for the last 5 minutes. So 5 minutes at 400 Fahrenheit, I think it was. 5 minutes, then 5 minutes on the steak inside the air fryer, and then turned over for another 5 minutes. So 5, 5, 5. And it was quite crispy on the outside at that high temperature, but it was juicy inside, So yeah, that's her little trick. Yeah. Look, I gave up. I haven't had alcohol for a while, and I had 4 pints yesterday. Luckily today, when I actually, my feces were fine. Nothing strange. No, it didn't hit me in the gut, luckily. But I had 4 pints of cider, and they were like having 8 pints of beer, because it's like nearly double the alcohol, or 6.5 or 7 equivalent. So yeah, I did take 2 B vitamins before, 2 after. It's the end of the year get together at a pub with work colleagues, so I'd sort of abstain from a lot of other ones to avoid the alcohol. And, sort of gave in yesterday, wanted to be sociable. I can tell you, one of the wives of one of the guys asked, said, "Do you want me to take you home?" And I said, "No, no, thanks." And I just sort of walked into this, sitting there, walked to the supermarket, went up and picked some really nice juicy steaks at some porterhouse that they had on a very good price, and then just walked home. And just walking sort of gets gets you sweating and gets the stuff out of your system slightly. So I felt a bit better. Then I was on the Zoom thing. I had another two B complexes after that, sort of and some choline, and that seemed to have done the trick. Um, I didn't feel like 100% this morning. I have to be honest. I didn't, So it did knock me about a bit, but I was still functional, But I've always been a heavy drinker, so I can take that amount. That is nothing compared to what I used to drink. So, but it's still, it's definitely toxic to your body. Alcohol, there's nothing redeeming about it. But we do occasionally cheat and lie to ourselves and basically say, "It's not going to do me that much harm. I'm taking all these things." So I did lie to myself and try to convince myself that oh yeah, it's only a social occasion. But yeah, after that, you go, "Oh shit, maybe I should have only done two and slow down." So yeah. Anyway, we do silly things even at my age. So. Yeah, got to learn the hard way sometimes, and sometimes we don't. Why does everyone say that you lose electrolytes when you have diarrhea? Is it that you just don't gain the ones in the food or water you consumed before? Well, you through the bowel, through the large intestine, you actually have water that actually can be reabsorbed into the body. And so there is a bit of movement between your, you know, water content in different compartments of your body and your large intestine. So what you can, where water goes, certain electrolytes go with it. And so it can draw on some electrolytes, and so reduce and have some electrolyte loss. It's not massive. It's not massive. It's you know the biggest issue is the osmotic state within your system, that you end up sort of a certain level of dehydration, which is really the bigger problem. You know, so you're losing rapidly fluids as you're flushing out. You know, pathogenic bacteria or whatever it's actually causing all this sort of problems. And as a consequence of doing that, you're actually losing fluids. And there is a not osmotic relationship between fluids and electrolytes. So there is a certain proportion of electrolytes or ions that have to be within the fluid. So if the fluid reduces, so with those ions, and so as a consequence, they draw things to them, you know, like even sodium will draw, you know, uh, water and stuff like that. So you end up losing it. How much depends on the severity of diarrhea and stuff like that. Is the key thing. You can arrest that after with some, salt water and certain, and as you're eating and all that, it's not like it's massive. If it's chronic, yes, it can become a problem. But if it's just one case or one day or a second day potentially, it's not going to be any major risk to your body. Your body can still sort of manage to hold on. It can actually produce its own metabolic water and recycle more of the electrolytes at the kidney level, you know. And I always say to people, if you're having diarrhea and stuff like that, episodes, take a bit of taurine, because that's going to help with managing the electrolytes. And as long as you're in a low carb state, you're going to be producing metabolic water So the body can balance those sort of things in a way and reduce the amount of both electrolyte loss and also the level of dehydration. So the problem with dehydration and electrolyte loss will be much more amplified or magnified in somebody who's not in a low carb state. So they will have much greater problems on a SAD diet or a veganurized diet or any other sort of diet compared to a low carb diet where you've still got access to metabolic water, to producing water from your own fat cells. But people that don't have that ability, the exception to that rule is chronic, severe dehydration caused by excessive amount of diarrhea over a number of days. That's something that even the body can't keep up. And if you've got something that's actually causing that, and there can be certain types of infections that can cause these sort of things. Most people do not get to that severe level, but in some cases, some people do. And it tends to be people that are on inappropriate diets in the first place that will actually get these severe chronic type of episodes. Most people on a low carb diet, unless they're doing a lot of things wrong, a lot of cheating and a lot of other things, I've really never had that experience myself, and I've never known anybody to have any such severe experiences either. I've sent him a link. If he wants to come on. I don't know, how he's feeling at the moment, so he may not be in the best of moods. So I will leave it at that. It's just Kadilos is my real given name. It's my grandfather's name, but everybody knows me by Harry, and even at work they know me by Harry. It's shrunken for the purposes, and even in Greek, it's short is Hardis. Hardis and Harry, very similar. So it's suited perfectly. Yes, very much so. Yeah, luckily, I have to thank Shelley. I'd have to thank that brother that actually dissuade cr- broke up the relationship that my father had before he built a relationship with my mother. So I have to thank that guy. I wouldn't exist otherwise. Mm. Fair enough, mate. Have you gone back to your parents' place or for the holiday period? So yeah, which is fair enough. I mean, you guys have got your own. Yeah, enjoy your Christmas with your parents and your family. Merry Christmas to you, and thanks for all your support. Through the year, I appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. I sort of had the same feelings. I wish Mum was still around. She kicked. She died too young at 76. You know, Dad still he'll be 88 in about about 20 odd 20 21 22 days. Yeah, anyway, I need to check the calendar properly. So Dad will be 88, and Mum was a year older than him, and her brother, her younger sister's still around. She's getting close to 80. Um, Her older sister died from choking, and she was already in her 80s. She was getting close to her 90s, and she was a strong woman. I mean, she was a monster. You didn't take her on. She'd bash it. She'd take on men. She was a tough woman. So, you know, She had big muscles because she'd worked the land so hard all her life. She was a built, like those Russian big mamas. They're really strong. They can, you don't pick a fight with them. Exactly. That's how Thea Patrula was. Patrula was her name. So Thea Patrula was very strong woman, and she pretty much she would have lived longer. Her brother, who he liked to drink a bit, but he sort of cut it out later on in life. He lived up to 93. I put it down that like myself, getting cardiovascular disease in my mid 40s. I actually believed in the bullshit and started using a lot of seed oils and refined sugars and stuff like that. I believed in that low fat bullshit with seed oils being healthy for you. And I cooked everything and did a lot of, and even consumed a lot of it, used it as dressings. I didn't use not even olive oil. Dad thought I was crazy for consuming that sort of stuff, and he was right. And Mum sort of, she got influenced by me and did the same thing. And so where none of her family ever consumed this sort of toxic garbage, she ended up dying younger than any of our other siblings that died. And the one that's still alive every single one of her siblings have either passed away by outliving her or have outlived her and still are in life. And that tells you a lot. And they have not consumed these toxic seed oils. So, that's what happens. And I had to learn the hard way as well. I nearly died, in my mid 40s. And so, now 12 years later, I'm much healthier in a much better state. But I got that close to be snuffed out due to listening to those assholes. And so, yeah, she would have still been around because many of her relatives got into their 90s, and many of my relatives on my side have got into their 90s and above. They tend to. I've even got some of the so-called longevity genes, but it doesn't help you if you're putting toxins into your body continuously. So if you're eating like my great grandfather who hated vegetables and didn't eat any of that stuff, just pretty much it was animal foods mostly, and lived to 107, like those Maasai that lived to, have children, those in their 70s, the men, and they get into, and they're still around in their early 100s plus. And these are the people, they've got nothing to hide. They just talk about their relatives and stuff that I recently. That's the stuff, what do? They go to Nairobi, these ass hats, and they go and see the Maasai who are eating seed oils and refined sugars. They go to they don't go to the tribal areas because they're too lazy. They go and actually look at these people. They check them and they go, oh, this guy's got this sort of, well, they're on a sad diet. What do you expect? That have health issues. Why don't you go to the tribal areas? Oh, that's too dirty, too far away, too dangerous, too many lions. Yeah, probably some of these nutritionists that, would make a good snack, wouldn't they? I'm with the lions on that one because they're useless to humanity. I don't have any ill intentions against anyone, but they wouldn't be a great loss. Let's put it that way. Oh, thanks, George. No, I wouldn't go that far. You don't know me too well. Fair enough. Yeah. Thanks, Zach. Theochardy. Yeah, that's the Greek way. Yeah, I thought you were going to go back. Yep, that's why I mentioned it earlier. But yeah, it's that Hello Kitty, my next door neighbour. She calls me that. Now it's stuck. Anyway, I don't mind it. Time for fusion. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the stream. Our our turn to enjoy the warm weather. Yes, definitely. It's been it's nice that it's actually nice and warm out there. I'm enjoying it. I'm just getting out in the sun continuously. So probably spending a bit too much time out in the sun, but I don't put any sunblock or anything. Just I know some people go, "You don't do that." No, au natural. Shit. Yes. I mean, Babs, what is it? I think, yes, it's even lower than that. Was it minus, I can't even remember now. What was it, minus 12-ish or, so that is cold, cold as. Let's do the conversion thing, So, oops, minus 12 Celsius. Okay, so hold on. That's a bit weird. So -2 where you are, Fahrenheit is minus 18.9 Celsius. So that's bloody cold. God. I'd lose a nut under those conditions. Don't worry, I won't take you to that weather. Just having a private conversation. Bloody hell. That would be very, very cold. Let me just find the go back. Where is Babs? Okay, he's talking that it. Anyway, it's -5 where he is, but it feels like less than. So that's minus 20.6 Celsius. Damn. Now that's damn cold. God. God. I hope you guys have got good heating. Freaking hell, that would be cold ass. I mean, the lowest I think we get, the lowest we get is about minus, I think it's been like -1 Celsius, which is 30.2 degrees Fahrenheit. That's in winter in Tasmania. That's as cold as it gets in Hobart. I think that's the coldest we've ever. Most of the time, it's about around about 2 to 3 degrees, about probably 3, which is 37.4 Fahrenheit. That's our winter, that we all sort of jump up and down about. And that currently, as Hello Kitty is actually saying, it's 17 degrees out there, which is 62.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's not a warm day, but it's a humid day. There is a bit of humidity around sitting. So that's what's making it a bit warmer than usual, because usually when you got 17, we sometimes get 17 in winter, but it's chilly. There's no humidity. It's bugger all humidity. Now there's quite a bit of humidity out there, and that's making it makes it different when there's more, you could say, water vapor in the atmosphere. Or in this locale anyway. Yep. Everybody keeping warm, cuddling up. It's the only time you want to pat your cat and dog and have them very close to warm up, obviously. Yeah, that would be cold. Ooh, damn. G'day, Thomas. Good to have you here, mate, as well. And Merry Christmas to you. The girlfriend's here. It's cross. Yeah, I know that, but okay, so you guys are all gun ho. I just want to know whether it's going to happen or not. Okay, yeah. Look, I know you guys signed the Abraham Accord, and you guys have definitely your existential threat is Iran for the Arab world and for Israel, a combination. But yeah, I was more interested if it's going to happen or not. The downside of something like that, is that I mean since antiquity, with the Persians, we've been, let's say, very much rivals. We've had, and there's been a lot of that. So I won't go into it. I don't have any ill will towards them as a people. I did have some Iranian friends when I was younger, or anything like that. So, but their leadership is on a trajectory of yeah, potentially causing, I don't think anybody wants them to go nuclear, because it just destabilizes the region so much. Yeah, it is a big risk. That's true. But it's interesting that the Americans are getting all gun ho at the moment about it, at a time when energy costs are so high and all that. It's probably the last, you know, you know. Let's get over one war before we start another, and especially in that region where energy supplies haven't been sorted out. So yes, I'm worried about China as well. It's not only, they're hoarding stuff like there's no tomorrow. They're building pipelines into Central Asia and into Russia at a astonishing pace for energy security, and they're hoarding food. There's a lot of shipping that's going in and out through the South China Sea, and there's a lot of hoarding at the moment that's actually happening. That's another thing that's causing some inflation on commodities. Um, and so I don't know whether they're thinking, maybe this is a good time to basically, deal with the Taiwanese problem. So yes, that also seems to be sort of building up, and there's a lot of activity, and also the swap deals on the debt reservicing of Southeast Asia. That was quite interesting as well. What's been happening to guarantee supply from certain of those countries of certain raw materials. So there's a lot where the output production is much lower than the imports of raw materials. And it's combined with a lot of food imports at the same time. So, the materials are not going to basically building, let's say, toys or other things to export. It seems like it's going directly into the military industrial complex and the food to guarantee food supply in a war environment. Like you're setting up for a war economy by pulling in a lot of resources and building up energy reserves, and so a lot of that's sort of happening at the moment. So yeah, our world is becoming very, very unstable. We're already at the beginning of the Third World War. Nobody's talking about it, but that's really what it is. The Third World War's already started. It's like in 1916, just before the outbreak of the mother of all battles. The big meat grinder that happened right after that. We're in a similar sort of state where, you know, there is a possibility of negotiations, like Germany Germany, France, and in Britain at the time, they were close to, they realized that this war was really just very destructive. And the Americans, were seen as a sort of a fair broker, but then they got involved in all their politics and all their other stuff, and sort of under Woodrow Wilson, and sort of had less involvement. They dropped their involvement because I was sort of involved with their domestic politics, and as a consequence, the things escalated in the last 2 years, 17 and 18, and things really went pear shape in terms of the amount of deaths and all that. And I think we're in we're in a similar state, so I'm really bloody worried. This bloody swallow different. Yeah. Damn. Yeah. So it's not looking. Yeah, it's looking quite dangerous, and sorry being a party pooper, but yeah, it's heading in the wrong direction. So hopefully nothing outbreaks around this period. Yeah, and the Russians are basically been pulling a whole lot of stuff to the Ukrainian border. Their supply lines are starting to slow down now, so they are, and most people don't understand. The Russians don't fight they don't hold the line. They're not interested in holding the line. They've got depth. Even when the Germans, they retreated, built up their capabilities, built up their supply lines and all that, and then came back and hit unrelenting and didn't stop until they got to Berlin. That's how they operate. And they are doing the same now. They're pulling back, regrouping, rebuilding, bringing in new, more troops, bringing in more equipment, and bringing in more supplies. They're building up their logistics. And their logistic trail is starting to slow down, which means that they're nearly there. So all hell on earth is about to break out, And here we're finding ourselves in the same situation like 1916. The possibility of where the French and the Germans could basically pull their finger out and say, look, guys, you need to de-escalate this. We need to come to an agreement. But they're not doing that. They're sort of sitting back and allowing the Americans and the Russians to sort of go at each other and escalate even further. And that's what's going to happen, because people never fucking learn, It's all history just gets repeated so many bloody times over and over again. Back into the meat grinder is what's going to happen. So, g'day, Loki.
Hello, Harry. How are you?
You're back with mum and dad.
Yeah.
And family. Good for you.
Had to be careful not to, because they are already sleeping. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but still had some steam left on me, so decided I would join.
Fair enough. G'day, Pat. Yeah, sort of things around the world are not looking as stable, unfortunately. I hope that some miracle does happen, some Christmas miracle, and people and things de-escalate before they go really haywire. So yeah, a bit concerned about all that. Currently, I'm trying to keep my feelers on what's happening and movements around the world. Shipping, I'm keeping an eye on the shipping at the moment, how many ships, how much tonnage, and what's being transported around the world. I mean, if you really want to know what's happening, you've got to look at this information. It's really data. Most people just talk shit. You've got to look at the data. When you look at the data, you realize something's afoot. People do not do these things. They don't transport or make certain purchases or move things around for no good reason. There's a plan behind. There's something's motivating them to and moving them into a certain direction, and they are definitely got a goal and a target to achieve, and they will move certain things in such a way. So it's observing those little detailed things. You start realizing something's definitely afoot on that front. Now, I don't know whether the Chinese are going to risk a Taiwanese thing or whether they want to see how other things play out with the Ukrainian issue before, if the Russians go in shock and awe and, do their major counterattack and all that and drive all the way. It may be an opportunity for them to strike because the everybody else is too caught up with the Ukrainian issue. So it's, powers opportunistically will use and exploit certain circumstances. There's a lot of upheaval. That you've got the Haiti sort of situation where the Americans are trying to basically justify an invasion. Oh, that's it, right? It's a special operation. Oh, like Putin did. Oh, that's right, in Ukraine. But it's the American special operation. And they're sending special forces in as well. It definitely is a special operation then with Canadian and American special forces. We need to sort out these people. We need to save them from themselves. Yeah. Yes. If it was the reverse, when America was having their little war of independence or civil war or whatever, more akin to civil war, they were definitely angry about any other foreign powers being interfering into their little civil war. Well, in some regards, if it could be a change for the better with the current regime that's there. Some of these other people may take over and start developing those resources and making the country wealthier. They couldn't do any worse than the existing crowd that's actually run the country into extreme poverty. So, we've had cases like in different parts of the world where certain leaders have come up. I mean, even in the early days, Da Silva, when he came up in Brazil, he was a bit more gung-ho, developing industries and stuff like that. And that was a good thing for Brazil. It sort of transformed Brazil into moving them up into a brick nation and becoming far wealthier than it was. He just lost his way later on. But that's a different thing, But that's the thing, the nice thing about democracy, when people do lose their way, you kick them out and put somebody else in, So it's how it works. But the thing is, no politician's perfect. I mean, that's why I'm a supporter of direct democracy. But you sometimes need to, change. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. It gets worse, and then you have to change again to get lucky. So, or the people that were, let's say, pushed out, then come back in with new blood, with new ideas, because they realize they have to offer something and actually do a better job. So there's always that possibility. But unfortunately, when foreign powers interfere in those nations, then they don't allow those normal domestic dynamics to take place and for political transformation to happen, because they prevent it. They keep people in power that they shouldn't, and they prevent that transformation happening in a society. All societies at some point need to transform and try something different. It's a proper normal evolution of any society, and foreign power should stay out of it. And that demented leader in Washington needs to know his place. But unfortunately, they'll be going in with the other authoritarian in Canada for a special operation. Yes. I watched a video talking about CO2 is making winters colder by trapping heat. It's really like saying fiber is good for the gut because it damages it. Yeah, I know, it's just ridiculous. The amount of bullshit these people come up with continuously. CO2 has nothing to do with the colder winters or the warmer summers or anything. If the sun doesn't put out solar radiation, doesn't get trapped in the atmosphere, if the sun loses lowers its luminosity, there's going to be less it doesn't matter the particles. If the atmosphere is more thicker, that creates a more higher barometric pressure. That actually increases temperature as well. That's another method of actually increasing it. It's not only the suns and the stuff that gets trapped, is far more dynamic. But with CO2, there's an overlap with a whole lot. So even if you didn't have CO2, and before a period before oxygenation existed on planet Earth, you had a very different composition of the atmosphere. Again, you had periods that were very cold, even though CO2 was very high, and also periods when it was the other way around. So it's not a consistent thing that we know in the actual scientific literature and geological history that we've actually looked at. So it's just bonkers, models, people making models and fabricating reality. I mean, that's what that. It's not real science. It's pseudoscience, pretty much. They'll come up with anything. What is actually really destabilizing those vortices that are in the North and South Pole that do get destabilized? It's pretty much what is happening, and it happens more in the northern because of your positive and negative, the sort of the magnetosphere. It's really that the flow of magnetic flows around the magnetosphere is actually weakening, and that solar vortex used to stay closer to the North Pole. It's actually moving further south. It's the magnetosphere, and that's why the poles are also warming a bit more, because of the magnetosphere. Where there's a whole lot of physicists that are talking about magnetosphere reversal. We don't know when it's going to happen, and we may be in the throw, because we've had situations where the magnetic north has been jumping around all the time. It heads into Canada, then it pops over to Siberia, then Alaska. It's all over the place, the magnetic north. It's really problematic for things like navigation and all that. They have to basically, take constant measurements and recalibrate systems around the world to basically work with this sort of moving. And it's happening more often nowadays, because we're in this. We don't know how long this whole period could last, for a very long time, for a number of thousands of years, or it could happen tomorrow, where we get a magnetic reversal of the poles. It happens, a number of thousands. I think it's about 600,000 years. I can't remember exactly, but it happens where this. And we're in this sort of similar thing. And this is why the equatorial temperatures, average temperatures, are not increasing. It's only the poles. And it's because of this anomaly. Otherwise, if it was, I mean, you have to think about it. Carbon dioxide spreads evenly throughout the whole atmosphere. If it was that, you would actually have everywhere on the planet an equal increase, not at the poles only. This is why only pseudoscientists believe that there is some sort of, magic that is happening at the poles, and everywhere else it's an anomaly which they can't understand. There must be some reason. It's polar magnetic potential, a destabilization of the magnetosphere, because we're in a long period of magneto reversal. It's in the early stages now, but it will, and when it intensifies a bit, it also reduces, has an effect on, the level of, you get more UV coming through. We talk about ozone and all that, but there's, even that, there's a lot of nonsense in that. It could be a misunderstanding of this polar reversal issue that's actually increased the solar radiation, less to do with ozone. That's another area that is contentious, and potentially they may have got wrong as well. So there's all this sort of stuff. That's why I'm saying that, these absolutists, we know, yes, we are little gods, climate gods, and we know, and we will tell you, little people. The reality is they have no friggin' idea. No friggin' idea. And when they actually put certain standard, these different additional weather stations, because people criticise that the terrestrial stuff did not match the stuff that was measured by satellites, that there was things were quite out. They actually put additional stations around America and a few other places in order to basically get new readings, more accurate readings over a period of time, like a decade. Well, the thing is, what it actually showed is like a flat line, no really any major change in temperature. But you know what? some of that stuff got released in the early days and then now they don't release it. They combine it with other terrestrial data and then release it. And so they won't give us the original data anymore. So without the original data, we don't know. We know that, because some people have actually got the single readings from these weather stations, and they just like that. There's no upward trend. They're just like that. And some of them have even gone down slightly in temperature readings. Some have gone a bit up, some have a flat line, and some have gone down a bit. So really, it's a bust, that whole notion. But they continue to do their little fabrications and ignore the magnetosphere weakening of the magnetosphere for the additional UV that's coming through at the poles. And they've got weather stations down in Antarctica and weather stations up, and they're making these readings, and then they are feeding that into the models and coming up with these spurious numbers, which so. Yeah, but I see your analogy, Bob. It is a bullshit analogy. Yeah, it's exactly like saying fiber, Yeah, it's a ridiculous thing. Anyway, you got hugs from Shelley. Okay, see you, mate. He's probably gone already. Ed Con 88, how are you, mate? Hi, Ari. Merry Christmas from Ireland. Merry Christmas to you as well. Quick question. I found a study from 1972, George Mann and the Maasai investigating. Yeah, that was all in Nairobi. I've talked about that. Yeah, I'd just ignore that. Because when he did tribal measurements in the tribal zones, where he actually found none of those issues. And then he went to Nairobi, because in the tribal areas, they don't have medical facilities. They've got nothing. Went to Nairobi and then did autopsies on certain people, and then found this, and then came up with a stupid idea. And this was where George got it wrong, where he sort of said, well, they do get atherosclerosis like us, but they don't seem to die like us. They must have a genetic thing. And he really mucked up. He didn't understand. He was looking at two different population groups, where Weston A. Price understood that. He said, here's a group doing the traditional diet. Here's a group that is close to stores that is now introducing a whole lot of the modern foods of civilization, which is seed oils, refined carbs, and all that. And the same thing is happening in Nairobi. And even Mary Ruddock spoke about that, how in the schools where a lot of the Maasai kids go, they get fed this garbage. And then when they go back to the tribal areas, they can't tolerate pathogens in the environment. They're actually more sickly, and they have more health issues than their siblings that live in the tribal areas and are not exposed to these foods. So even those kids now in the tribal areas are starting to be damaged by going to school and being fed inappropriate things. And she's running a program there trying to get, like for schools, like a cow and stuff like that, to provide milk to the kids, better quality food. So she's got a program that she's been running now for some time. But yeah, it's unfortunately, that research was all confounded because it was people living in Nairobi, which is the capital of Kenya, and those people in that are not doing their tribal diet of meat and milk. They are eating carbohydrates and using also oils. So, because a lot of oils are being used in a lot of cities around, and even back then, because it was cheaper, So, and the colonial powers brought that stuff into the city areas because it was cheaper to transport, cheaper to use. Because actually, somebody put that a comment on one of my videos as well. Similar comment. It was a Vagoon that actually put it. Oh, their life expectancy is only 43 or something like that, along their lines, and this sort of nonsense about it. I explained to him about the Nairobi stuff, the sort of stuff. And also the life expectancy is a bullshit thing. We've got a reverse pyramid. In America, Australia, we've got an aging population. In Japan, an aging population. So it's a reverse pyramid. So you've got less young people, more old people. So what do you think the life expectancy is going to be? Much higher. It's just an indication. The life expectancy is an indication of an aging population. If you've got, 50% of your population are below 15 years of age, and then you average that out, you're going to end up with a very low life expectancy for that year, for that population. It's statistical nonsense. Absolutely statistical nonsense. You want to do proper stuff, say everybody over 65, if you've got 1,000 people here in one population, like in Africa, over 65, and 10,000 people where there is a more aged population in America, for instance, over that, how many people end up with different illnesses or with, as a percentage of that total amount of people? So, and that's how you compare two different populations in an age from, a certain older age, not from a whole lot of younger age. And they actually look at the percentages, not the averages, the percentages of those people dying within that population. And that's how you really work out whether those people are healthier and more of their older people, even though the older people are a smaller proportion of their population, they're living longer compared to and breeding longer. I mean, 30-year-olds struggle in the West, and you've got 70-year-old Maasai in their mid-70s still being able to impregnate their wives. I mean, give us a break. And being over 100. Remember the video that I did recently on the Maasai? People talking about their families and all that. That's the real stuff. Or Mary Ruddock, standing next to a 120-year-old. She was jumping up and down. I mean, give me a break. Most 30-year-olds would struggle to do probably that, and they'd probably have a hip fracture, in the West. So it's just ridiculous, the sort of stuff that that we're fed. It's just all fabricated, confounded, and ignored. And people playing around with statistics. You can make statistics tell you anything. And that's why I just gave you a simple example there why average life expectancy is nonsense. For the simple fact, we've got a reverse pyramid. They've got more young people and less old people because they've got a more higher breeding. They are breeding faster. They're having like 10, 12 kids. Forget about and also the infant mortality. It does play a role, but even ignoring all that completely, the averages are still going to be skewed at a lower number. When you've got a bigger young population, your average life expectancy of all the entire population when you've got a pyramid is going to be lower. And when you've got a reverse pyramid like we've got in our societies, that an aging population, the more it ages, the higher the life expectancy, the average life expectancy goes. That doesn't mean that these people are living longer and healthier. It just means that there are less young people. And so your statistics that's all they're saying. It's a bullshit thing. It should be thrown in the trash where it deserves to stay, because it is a bullshit thing to use as a measurement of health of a population. Artificial sweeteners. Yeah, a lot of them can be quite problematic. They can raise insulin quite a bit, like aspartame. They can affect the gut microbiome negatively. What else? They can potentially also have an effect on your hormonal system, because it's anticipating certain things to come in as well. So it's not really a good idea. Probably the only thing that I would actually consider, as I've said in the past, is erythritol, because you only absorb about 10%. 90% ends up in the stool, in the toilet. So very little comes in, and our bodies naturally can produce some erythritol as well. So in that regard, it's going to be less problematic to the overall body in that regard. So I wouldn't be too concerned. obviously, if you consume too much erythritol, you will get loose stools. So it's not a good idea either. So, like any other naughty Harry. Oh, that was when I was misbehaving earlier. Yeah. Fair enough. G'day, mate. How's it going? Merry Christmas to you as well. Okay, you did it at 4 minutes. Fair enough. Yep. It's less messy. Yeah, look, that's what she was doing. That's what she was doing. So, yeah. Anyway.
My share popped. That was scary.
Oops. What happened? Are you still doing are you doing any raw eggs at the moment, or?
Actually, no. I did try some a while back. I want to get back into it, to be honest. It was
Okay.
mostly just getting through the mental thing, But
Yeah,
I still have some.
I can do very easily, like the yolks. The whites is where I struggle with.
Yeah.
Well, you too?
Yeah, it's the same thing with me. I don't like the whites by themselves. If I mix everything up, I usually won't bother.
Yeah,
But
that's probably that's yeah. I usually just swallow it like that, all of it, and so I do get a bit of the sensation of the white. But I never thought about mixing it before I swallowed it.
yeah,
Actually, that may be a better idea.
I know someone here watching
Not
us.
blend. You don't want to blend it because
Yeah,
that's
oxidize
not what you
everything.
want. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to damage the phospholipids and stuff like that. But because you're removing them from the matrix, even frying is much safer. But actually putting it into a cup and then just with a spoon, just sort of that's probably a better way of doing it.
That's how my dad used to have that when he was younger. So yeah, I took that from him, I guess. But
Okay.
I've been having raw yolks with ice cream whenever I make some. So
Okay.
that's not an issue there. So
Yeah, I could do that. Nice combo. You have any chance to look at B? No, I haven't. No, I haven't actually. Look, I haven't actually looked at. I can't really comment if I haven't actually seen the studies, the rat study concerning the mysterious liver anti fatigue factor. What do you? Yeah, look, yeah, I'd have to actually look at the actual study, the details, how it was done, and whether there was things not done properly or whether the animal was exposed to other things. It's really hard with those things. Even if you've got one study showing certain things, you do need confirmation. You do need another study because of contamination of evidence. You do need. This is why the New England Journal of Medicine, the head of that, I forget her name, but she actually resigned a few years back, and she resigned for that reason that well over 90% of the studies couldn't be replicated. And if you can't replicate a study to confirm it, it's like, I do a measurement of time dilation to validate Einstein's theory of relativity. Well, if I do one experiment, I actually show that there is time dilation, but there's a whole lot of other people that do experiments that show no time dilation. Well, then it's a bust, in a sense. So one study does not make. You need confirmation. And that's why sometimes I show you guys, I'll be looking at something and then I'll show additional studies showing quite clear mechanisms that are at play. Yeah, you've got to have things that actually can confirm each other. But it doesn't mean that there may not be under certain circumstances that something like this can happen. You can get an inverse relationship with things, but it's just teasing out and working out what it is. Did they actually pick up something or identify something? Because that can give you other insights. But to sort of make any claim you have to have good evidence and be able to confirm it with additional research. But I just forgot all about it. Pretty much, I've been doing. I had the salad boy stuff that I had to do and a few other things. So that takes my focus. Where this sort of stuff is, rat study done back in the 1950s is a lower priority. It may not be for you, but it is for the channel, so to speak. So that is what I do take down things, and when I do get a chance, I do look into them at some point. So do ask me again, and you may get an answer because I may have had a chance to look into it. Now that you brought it to my attention twice, more than likely it will happen. And it's at 90 minutes, so at least I know exactly where to look to remind myself. I need a Taurine X raw egg song. Do I now, Zach? A request from Uncle Harry to Uncle Harry. Yes. I'll have to come up with something. I'm not that musical, so on the fly, coming up with something musical is a bit of a struggle. Honest thoughts on Jack Kruse. My honest thoughts? I think he exaggerates a number of things, and I think that he actually speculates on a number of other things. He has some really good information, and he's a very smart man. Don't get me wrong. And I think he's got some really good insights. But I think also he does suffer of a bit of reductionism. And he also, I think some of his views, and the reason why he complicates the message is because he's speculating and he doesn't want anybody challenging him. And that's the real reason. And that's why he won't debate anyone. As simple as that. I tried once when he was actually talking to Bart, but I didn't want to upset Bart. Bart sort of said, nah, please don't ask. so I held back, and that was as a courtesy for Bart because he's a friend of Bart's. But I think that and it's the same thing with deuterium depletion. While it is a very important thing, it's just not the only thing. At the end of the day, okay, you deplete deuterium out of the system and you reduce your deuterium level. What then? You still need your mitochondria to actually be repaired and working. At most, what you may achieve by doing that is forcing such an energy deprivation to the cell that it causes apoptosis and it goes away. But some cells that have gone metastatic are much harder to force them into apoptosis because they've turned off all those mechanisms in their cells. And they will find, and that's when they could actually start pushing into other, growing in order to take from other neighboring cells. So that's not a strategy either. And that's where taurine comes in with its powerful apoptotic effect or amplifying physotin or things like that. And also healing, because remember, when it comes to the endoplasmic reticulum, where some of this game is being played, where transcription is happening, and in the mitochondria itself, the key nutrient, the key molecule that actually has very powerful anti-toxic effects or cytotoxic effects, as it's called, in those areas is taurine. So when you add that component in there, you're not only clearing up a lot of the reactive oxygen species and a lot of the damaging and helping repair a lot of that. On the top of that, the other reparative component, which is melatonin, it helps produce more of it. It amplifies its effects and actually does a lot of the repair, which actually restores, respiration, as it's called, oxidative phosphorylation. That means the electron chain to be producing ATP. It's basically, we call it, when that starts working, those nanomotors and producing ATP again, it's basically saying reestablishing, respiration. because oxidative phosphorylation is respiration, you know. So once you've done that, when they say that, they use that term, that is what taurine, and this is a missing link. You know, you've got to combine the deuterium depletion protocols with, now, Laszlo and Cole and a few others that are actually involved in that, they do recommend like sleeping and stuff like that, that does help with improving melatonin and blue light, stuff like that, stuff that I talk about, but they haven't made all the connections. And, you know, and with Jack, you know, yeah, okay, you can get a bit of energy from the sun through cytochrome C in the mitochondria. Yep, I accept that. I'm not going to argue against that. Yes, photonic energy does play an important role in modulating, you know, the different parts of, you know, your energy production, all that. But it's not only that. That's reductions of this thing. That's just the ultimate thing. There's a whole lot of other. It's an interplay of many things. This is why, you know, just being deuterium depletion, like Laszlo, is not the only solution. It's a combination of a species-appropriate diet that combines taurine, a whole lot of other micronutrients and other stuff in combination with better sleep, with blue light sort of protocols, the light sort of side, which I agree with Jack. Then the deuterium depletion to improve the functioning of the you know, the mitochondria. All these things are in combination, work synergistically to improve the functioning of, you know, the cells and the mitochondria in the body. And so I do find some of these people, they will jump on their bandwagon, and it's pretty much, it's all about light, it's all about deuterium, it's all about, you know, these are very important things, don't get me wrong, but that means the diet is affecting the deuterium composition. So the diet plays an important role. You can't ignore that. So it's really important that, you know, that we don't have this sort of narrow views, because we end up just talking in a very narrow, we need to understand the complexity. I've covered a large part of these things in my cancer playlist. So my cancer playlist, there's a lot of that information. So if you go through that, you will learn a lot about why I say things that I say. And I've got a number of people that are in complete remission, people that were metastatic, that have gone in, scanned themselves and shown zero, nothing lighting up, which means they can't detect cancer anymore in those bodies. People that were metastatic, given a very short amount of time to live. So, you know, the proof is in the pudding, where these guys just end up pushing the deuterium levels lower and lower. And if you do that, and even they know it, if you push the deuterium levels too low by diluting deuterium, you're going to create connective tissue issues. You still need deuterium for your collagen. So it's a problem. So, yeah. Everybody's got their style. I'm here for the raw eggs. Yes, yes. Nothing wrong with raw eggs. Only about 27% gets bound anyway, so of the biotin. So it's just, yeah. I still need to make that video, don't I? Yeah, anyway. Providing the formula so people can use the formula, not that it's going to make any difference in their life. Okay, Merry Christmas to you as well, Terence. How would I calculate 1 gram per pound of lean mass trying to gain more muscle? Thanks. I sort of, what I do, which I find much easier to do, is I say to people, what is the middle part of, you know, your sort of BMI type thing? What is the middle part of your BMI? If you target that, because when you become quite muscular, you end up being at the higher end of the normal BMI. or even sometimes into the overweight. But you're not overweight. You could be, slim as but very muscular. And so it's not a really good number, but targeting sort of that middle is sort of going to be much closer to a more muscular person's what you're aiming for. Because I always say, eat to what you're aiming for, not to where you are. I'm not interested in where you are, but where you want to go. If you want to go a certain direction, and this is where I usually say, if you're a woman, focus on 1.76, because they're less muscular, 1.76 grams per kilo body weight, which calculates in terms of the pounds. 1.76 divided by 2.2, it's about 0.8 per pound. And for women trying to become more muscular, 2.2 cents, which is about 1, obviously. So 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight, or 2.2 in terms of kilos. And if you're a man, I do about 2.2. I'm not looking to become a bodybuilder. And so when you're doing 2.2, that's about 1 gram per pound. Now, if you want to become more muscular, you should be looking at about 3.2. And that's about nearly 1.5 grams per pound. And if you really want to become like very highly competitive, then you're looking at 4 grams. And that's going to be about 1.8 to 2 grams per that average weight that you are on the BMI based on your height. So you're going to be so that'll give you more of a sort of a target level for your lean mass. So that's it's a rough, it's not an accurate, it's a rough thing, but that's the way I would actually do it. Because if you're carrying a bit of body fat at the moment, obviously you're not going to get a proper reading of that. So you got to go for what would be for your height, that middle line, and that will be your future lean that you're actually aiming for and building towards. And so, to maintain a certain muscularity, you need to feed it to that level. To build it, you need to feed it. And then to maintain it, you need to feed it to that level. It's simple as that. And then once you can do the recalculations, you'll be consuming the same amount at that higher muscularity, but it may be something like 2.5 at that stage because you've got much more lean tissue. So that will come down as a number, but you'll be eating the same thing. You won't stop. And that's actually easier because if you've got a target muscularity that you're actually targeting for, you're going to be always eating for that. You never have to change anything and recalculate and do all these sort of crazy things. So I always say, target what you're trying to get to and stick to that if you want to stay there. It makes it much easier. Okay, in the evening, I usually take 3 to 4 grams of taurine, but when I double that to 8, it seems to get I get a strong anxiety and also heart palpitations. Happen 2 times coincident, or what do you say? You may not have some people don't have as good an ability to clear excess sulfur. And some people have used like choline to basically reduce their sulfur levels, so. And then there's some people that may be holding on to, now obviously if you're doing lithium, I don't know whether you're doing lithium. I've done a video on that, Stefan. So not only the blood pressure meds, but also lithium. You can actually retain lithium, or if your diet is very rich in lithium. So that's another issue. There's a possibility, you may be eating things in your environment that they're, I don't know the area. There are regions in the world where there is high lithium concentrations in the soil, and then the food supply in that soil you may end up with high lithium in your diet. And if you're actually taking a lot of taurine, the problem is lithium is actually retained by taurine. It's an ion, and it will, so it's a problem. And that's why I usually say to people, you've got to lower your lithium intake if you're going to get onto taurine, and do only 2 grams, and then get the doctor to adjust and lower the stuff as because it actually has an effect on GABA A. But if you over sensitize that, you can actually get the reverse effect. So yeah, you may be, I don't know whether you're taking lithium and that's not a good idea to combine lithium with taurine. I've done a video on that, and do check it out and get some, or whether the soils in your region, you can check with the local authorities and find out whether your soils are rich in lithium, because that can be, and then you may have to consider not buying your meat, and consider buying your meat from elsewhere, the food that you're actually consuming. So to lower the intake of lithium, so you can actually, without having to make any sort of adjustments or biohacks, then you can actually increase your taurine without any problems. So yeah, what may be driving it could be an environmental effect that's actually affecting the ions in your body, or it could be a methylation issue, one of the two. And if it's a methylation issue, consider consuming a few more eggs and getting more choline, or supplementing, one of the two. Troy, have you had a time to watch Joey's latest video? No. Disappointing. It's a reaction video on Dr. Berry and coffee on carnivore. Thoughts on Joey, coffee on carnivore. For me, love coffee. Oh, no, I haven't actually seen it. I don't really know. Look, you have to realize, guys, I do, like any other social media, we support each other in the carnivore space, and we do, and all that. But you guys probably have more time. I have to do research to be able to provide content for you guys. That means it takes my time. Bart does the same thing. He does research, looking at other videos like Vagoon videos, doesn't have time to even see some of my videos sometimes. I sometimes have to say, have you seen, he says something, I said, have you seen my recent video on it covering that point? He goes, no. And he'll check it out. And he goes, oh, okay. So, but, and the same thing, I'll watch some of his. He's probably the only person that I do watch on more occasions, because I try to support him like he tries to support me. But at the end of the day, I don't get a chance to see everyone's. And also, Joey recently has been doing a lot of videos with some guy who's really way out there in some of his thinking. He's done a second video, and what can one say? I mean, I left a comment, as I said, to that guy, and about, have you gone down further south into northern Sudan to see the early developments of pyramids, and the failed ones that they abandoned because they got it wrong. They were learning how to make, it took them time to basically make those sophisticated improvements in engineering to work out how to make bigger and bigger pyramids. But if you don't look at those and you ignore that part, you can come up with all sorts of crackpot ideas. Aliens did them, yeah, whatever, So yeah, that guy's a bit way out there. Now he's talking about, I think, that you should be on a carnivore diet when you're young, and then a vegan diet when you're older, another mTOR and all the other shit, bullshit that a lot of these people don't even understand. I've got people on that have got metastatic cancer that basically go on a carnivore diet and do the other biohacks that I tell them, and completely reverse. So what are we talking about? mTORs had nothing to do with, amplifying signals in the body. Is just basically telling the body, well, you're putting something inappropriate. I need to tell you you need to push it somewhere else. But in the end of the day, the fundamental things that we're doing is, when you're damaging your cells or your mitochondria, that is the stuff that's doing it, And so that's the key things that you need to focus in understanding that sort of stuff. But yeah, look, I sort of try to encourage Joey to be a bit more open-minded and look at these things. And when I did my videos talking about taurine and also with him about taurine and also deuterium depletion, he did cover part of that issue with Laszlo because he goes to the same university. I told him that he should contact that person because he does go to the same university. It's much easier. I'm just nobody. I'm in Tasmania, very far away, no connection. So he had a better opportunity. And I think those are the sort of people that he should be gravitating around, that have got something to provide. And I was hoping that he would look into things like taurine and all that he hasn't really much at all. He's sort of gone a bit sideways in all this other sort of stuff. And, obviously I don't know what the video is all about. Look, I love coffee as well. I do have coffee here and I forgot about it and it's getting cold. But at the same time, coffee is not an indicated food. It's a plant. It does have some toxins and all that. But having one or two coffees is not going to kill you either in that regard. I think people over-exaggerated the effects. Things that are really bad is something that I did yesterday. That's alcohol and other things like that are really bad. And smoking and things like that are much worse things that you can do.
Yes.
Doing the occasional coffee. And also some populations have got a very strong adaptation, like I do. I can clear it out 4 times faster. I can detox caffeine and many other things. So it has less of an effect on the body compared to somebody that doesn't have good detox pathways. So, it's like lactose. Some people can tolerate it, have lactose persistent genes, don't have an issue, and others have problems. But let's not forget, milk has a lot of different nutrients there that really help the brain,
Yeah.
So people sometimes forget all the phospholipids that are in there, and choline as well that's in there. Well, yeah, it's the reason why I consume dairy, because it does have choline, phosphatidylcholine, and also eggs, because it's got choline, really important. And I do have a genetic thing that I really need extra choline, like I need extra calcium as well. I do have a genetics there, but it has other things that help with the brain, sphingomyelin and many other things for myelination. So, we can't demonize certain animal foods just because certain people may have a interaction that. And when it comes to coffee, yes, it's a plant-based food, obviously, but it's not the worst. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's not the worst either. And the small amount that we consume, which is so small, even the amount, methyl dioxyl and stuff like that. I mean, here's other people guzzling down honey or justifying honey, which has got shitloads of methyl dioxyl, and making a big fuss about coffee and other things. So yeah, get over it. In that regard, so we can go into excessively things. As long as people are doing 80+%, they're going to be much healthier than doing anything else. I mean, I'm normally, if I average it out for the whole year, I'm more like 90%. But 100%, I've been a couple of times, but I haven't been consistent. But I live in a food environment, and I do like coffee. I have to say, I like coffee. I'm not going to give it up. So, do I make out that it's a health food? No, it's not. It's never has been. Caffeine's not a health thing, and most of the other, and there's very little. The only thing that's going for coffee, if there is any nutrient that you can actually get quite a bit out of, is niacin. It is a good source of niacin. That's about it in that regard. And some people are not probably getting enough niacin, which is, and we know that niacin does play an important role for the redox potential inside the sort of mitochondria. So, well, obviously, I mean, yeah, for sure, you need to be able be able to pull up or have enough sufficient electrons to power the electron chain, but at the same time, you still need to move between the complexes, the electrons, and that it does require, things, precursors that support NAD sort of redox functions. So, in that regard, you could say it does have a little bit of benefit, but I wouldn't claim it as a health food. Obviously, that would be ludicrous. But yeah, look, I think I would never make a reaction video of that sort
Yeah.
in regards to anyone. I think that's childish.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's how it came across to me as well, because I
yeah,
have watched the whole video and,
yeah. I haven't.
well,
So what? So you know more about it? Just tell me a bit about it.
so basically, Dr. Barry's original video, he was trying to dispel some myths about coffee. Certain things that people used to say, oh, coffee is really bad because of this. It will stunt the growth of your child, or things
Yeah,
like that. He wasn't like outright promoting coffee as this like superfood. He was just saying, look, it is fine for some people. It's basic. That was basically the idea of
yeah,
the video.
yeah,
It is not as people as it is not as bad as people say it is.
yeah,
And that, I think that video was like 2 years old or something like that. And Joey was reacting to it and basically just saying that, no, why is he saying that coffee is a toxin? Why is a doctor that promotes a carnivore diet defending the consumption of a toxin? And it honestly just
yeah.
came
That's
across to me as
yeah,
really cheap,
yeah. It is. It
really
is.
shallow.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So
It's. I mean, I've never done a video for coffee for the simple reason that I do view it as it's a contraindicated food,
mhm.
or it's not something that you can actually promote as legit in terms of that. But certain people can tolerate it. That's true, and certain people, not going to have any issues, and it may have a few nutrients that may have some partial benefit, but it's no superfood and it's no real food that we require. But to basically then take a really moral stance in this sort of, it sounds like something that Severage would say.
Exactly. That's what.
It's taking a sort of this like black and white, either you're 100% or you're basically evil or something like that, which is ridiculous to take that sort of position. Yeah, anyway.
I understand him trying to come at the point of basically denouncing coffee as being a drug, a socially accepted drug.
Yep.
But
I'd have to agree with him on that.
yeah,
That it is definitely. Some people do use it as a stimulant,
yep,
and it's the caffeine primarily.
yep.
We have to differentiate what the part is, and and that's the other thing that what Stefan was actually saying earlier. Some people also, if Stefan, the previous question, is consuming coffee as well, that also can throw things around a bit depending on your genetics. So it's a bit like that. When I was doing very high doses of when very low doses of taurine, I kept away from coffee. Very sort of average, like 4 to 6, I'll consume coffee and I don't get any effect. But if I go very high, when I was doing therapeutic things, my throat's drying from too much talking. But when I do like therapeutic effects, then I usually cut coffee completely out whatsoever. And the reason for that is because I don't want, because it does seem to have a bit, because it has a diuretic effect. I'm trying to upregulate my antidiuretic hormones. And this could, I don't know whether, Stefan, you're consuming a lot of coffees in the day. If you are, you're actually you're fighting at the kidney level. the too much coffee is actually, I only have 2 coffees a day nowadays, but if you're having like 3, 4 and whatever, at the kidney levels, you're trying to excrete more fluids because of the coffee. And at the same time, taurine's trying to upregulate and hold on through the antidiuretic effect. It's trying to regulate the, and all that. And you're trying to do 2 things at the same time, and that can create a bit of disturbance in fluids in the body, and that potentially could cause some palpitations as well. So you got to be very careful when you're doing the high doses if you're doing a lot of coffee. And if you don't have good clearance, like if you've got poor genetics, that's the other thing. If you've got poor genetics, you may not be able to clear it as well. I can clear it about 4 times faster, so it doesn't affect me, even when I'm doing 2 cups of coffee, no matter what levels of taurine I'm sort of taking. If I do more than that, maybe, I think I had to do about 6 cups of coffee, and that was quite a bit. I even struggled for that. It wasn't, but you may get some sort of effect if you're doing quite a lot. But again, it's also to do the detox, how quick you can clear it out of your system. I've got those longevity genes that can actually get rid of it, including alcohol, 4 times faster. And by detoxing much faster, as I said, I've never had a detox issue. My issue was seed oils that caused the problem. If I didn't do that, I'd probably be way, way healthier and all that, but probably wouldn't have been part of this community. So in a sense, it was a sort of a blessing in disguise, if you could say that. But at the same time, is what I'm saying is that, you've got to be very careful with caffeine and with things like taurine as well. I mean, the food industry knows this. They deliberately put a small amount of in the energy drinks, a small amount of taurine with a lot of caffeine to amplify the effects. And some people do get into trouble by taking too much caffeine with taurine, so it can be a problem. And the thresholds are different. Some people at the medium level get any effect, or at the small level get an amplification. At the larger area, get some sort of derangement in fluids in the body, where the caffeine's trying to do one thing and the taurine's trying to do another thing, and the body can't regulate things properly. And that potentially could have heart palpitation issues if your fluid dynamics, the fluids, blood flowing through the heart isn't actually flowing smoothly as a consequence. Yeah, that potentially could cause some issues of that sort. So, and it will be probably with people that can't clear caffeine as well, because you'd have to check your genetics to work that one out, Stefan. So there's all these sort of things. It's not, and normally in your diet, you wouldn't get anything over 2 grams, if you ate, depending on what amount of meats and all that. As I say, when we do the higher amounts, we're doing it for other purposes, for biohacks, for senolytic purposes. We're doing it, to kill off old cells, to fix up fibrotic tissue, like I do with my heart. And now I've got 0 fibrosis based on the last scan that I had. And again, but I did that for a number of years at high doses, to something that I can't actually say somebody should on YouTube here, because I can only say half that amount, which is the amount which is I can actually show research, and I wouldn't get in trouble with my dear friends at YouTube. Yes, got to be very careful with that. Just limit your caffeine and you'll be fine. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, look, yeah. I think I think Joey needs to focus on the vagoons.
Yeah.
And the real, and people doing really things like, what about Saladino? You go after him. What about Saladino guzzling down shitloads of honey?
That's the funniest bit, because here's the thing. You have a Dr. Ken, which has helped many, many people.
Exactly.
he's saying, oh, you like this plant extract that is a stimulant? Okay, have some. If it's not too bad for you, just have some.
Yeah,
But then you have, on the other side, you have Saladino, which is misleading a bunch of people, guzzling down
precisely.
honey. Why is Joey not going after him even more aggressively?
Exactly.
It's just
Yeah, I'm asking the same question. I think Bart is as well. We're sort of concerned about some of the bedfellows that he's having in recent times with that other guy that believes in has some notions about veganism at when you're older, carnivore when you're younger, sort of thing, which is just nonsense.
also the
You know,
whole
I mean,
broad
the
thing.
Maasai, when
Yep.
they get sick, the elderly, what do? They take them to that area. They have some sort of soup that they've made from meat, and they've actually got certain types of plant compounds, which are medicine. We always say, me and Bart, plants are medicine; they're not food. They do have some additional hermetic effects. So they give them these things, but they feed them a lot of meat. What did that guy say? They eat more meat. So, because your body to heal needs the nutrients to build all the enzymes and all the tissue, the new tissue. What is it going to do it with? Basically, with sweet talking or with, miraculously, let's be realistic now. That's just nonsense. You need to feed the body what it's made of, and we're made
Yes.
of, you know, things that are the same thing that a whole lot of other animals are made of. So that's
Yep.
the material you use. It's like saying, "Oh, I'm not going to use this material. I'm going to use something else." I'm not going to use steel to build a bridge. I'm gonna use basically some other dodgy material that doesn't even never been used. Like string or whatever.
Yep.
You'll just fall through and probably, yeah.
No,
Exactly. It's ridiculous. It's
it just came to my mind that the guy that is saying that as you age you shouldn't eat as much protein, doesn't he not realize that a lot of old people have like sarcopenia, that their time was shrinking because they're not having
exactly.
enough taurine?
Yep.
How the hell do you say that older people should have less protein? That is criminal.
Exactly. It is. It is. It's the same bullshit that they've been saying now for a number of years. The nutritionists and all these old people in nursing homes can't even get out of the seat. They're so weak and frail they cannot lift themselves out of a seat.
Yep.
It's absolute nonsense to be recommending that sort of stuff. My father is on leucine, 6 grams of leucine, 6 grams of supplemental leucine, plus the same amount of taurine. And his kidneys have grown, they were atrophying. And also, not only that, his kidney cancer has shrunk. So, what does leucine do? It increases IGF-1, it increases mTOR signaling and insulin signaling. Yeah, the difference is that signaling is being directed towards muscle protein synthesis, not building up adiposity fat deposits. There's a difference between the type of signaling you get. These things are anabolic, but they are actually driving muscle protein synthesis, not adiposity. Not all anabolic functions are the same. Bloody idiots. Complete reductionist, nonsensical, and that's what I'm saying. My father's an example. What? I would deliberately try and kill my father with higher mTOR or anything like that? Are you friggin' kidding me? No, I know what actually will heal him. If I can actually amplify protein synthesis in his body, his bones, his muscles, and his organs will be much better and healthier and stronger and larger and better functional. And once they get better functional, they've got better energy production. And as they have better energy production, they can start healing themselves. Oh, fuck, the body healing itself, if we help it along and give it the right nutrition. Shock horror. I mean, what do the Maasai do? They feed their elderly a lot of meat to basically build up their their bodies. It's just ridiculous and nonsense that's out there. And that's why we've got all these nursing homes with people basically shitting themselves and wearing nappies. That's how frail and how dysfunctional they are. What is your gut made of? Collagen. So what do you basically need to maintain good gut function and good gut health? What else? Oh, it can't be that meat stuff. How divorced from reality can you be? And this is the guys that he's bringing on. He should be bringing on people like me, Bart, and Ken Berry and people like that are actually talking sensible stuff, not the sort of nonsense that some of these other people are talking about. Yeah, he's starting to lose his way, unfortunately. And I think a few people need to basically, for me, it's not my channel, it's his channel. I can't tell him how to run his channel. The people that subscribe to him should be basically saying, well, calling him up on this sort of stuff and saying, mate, you need to clean up your act. You're going down the wrong path. It's really easy to basically, do that. G'day, mate. Merry Christmas to you as well. I didn't want to imagine a world without our Harry Serpanos. Cheers to fate. Thank you, Shelley. Yes, going through it was a bit an ordeal, but yes, things did go the other way. Nothing like Wes. Nothing like earthing yourself. More electrons from the Earth, from Mother Earth, and those electrons. We need more electrons. We have too much. There's a lot of with non-native EMF, with so many things around us. We have too much, positive. You could say call it. It's not exactly because of electroneutrality in the universe. There is no like positive charge. It's everything that does have. It's not close to. It's not exactly zero in terms of a charge. It does have a bit of a negative or a bit of a positive charge, but it's not exactly close to zero. And so that's so it can actually have those effects, in the way things work in the universe, but at the same time, without creating too much over, like things zapping or things, otherwise if there was no electroneutrality or very little, you would see sort of like these strange, things sparking all over you inside your body and everywhere else. Electroneutrality prevents it. It's an easy way without getting into the physics to explain it. That guy that he actually brings on, that Joe brings on, he doesn't even believe in that. So he doesn't even, it's like another world in the thinking. He's the electric universe, going, oh, well, never heard of electroneutrality, the physics, or, he doesn't even, I think he doesn't even, because a lot of them don't even believe in gravity. And so if you're on an insulator, does that mean you no longer pull towards the earth, you'll float? I must get a plastic and stand on a plastic to see whether I float. It's just so nonsensical, the whole thinking, about this electric universe. No, there is something called gravity, mate. There is something called gravity. You may not believe it, but there is something, and there is something called electroneutrality in the universe. But yeah, he's got some weird ideas, that guy. But he's very, when he talks with a very strong confidence, and that, people can believe in all sorts of nonsense and express it in a very confident way. It doesn't make it true. So, just my little comments that I just made a while ago just show how non-plausible his views are. They just wouldn't work. And even the stuff that I talked about with the pyramids, just arguing, go and look, go on holidays to Sudan, northern Sudan, probably take a few some military with you as well as an escort, because it is a bit dangerous at the moment. But if you really want to, there are images of those stuff that other people, archaeologists and other tourists, have actually pictured. Those early pyramids, the little small pyramids that they do exist in northern Sudan and central Sudan. They do exist, so you can actually go and look at them and see the evolution of pyramids over time. But but to come up with, God, it's bizarre. My great-grandpa and great-grandma Savage both died around 100 during the end of the Great Depression. That had a great aunt in Florida that died 2013. It was over 100. Yeah, look, there's my great-grandfather, 107, was on a pastoral diet, which is meat and dairy. Didn't really like vegetables, even though, they would have consumed a few things, a few carbohydrates even back then, but it was very little because it was expensive to bring from the lowlands. They were more like treats if you had anything, which was the reason why he probably lived that long. So, yes, Alzheimer's can be a problem. Yeah, but it took her a long time to get to that stage before she died from that disease. Now it's happening much younger, and the reason for that is because back in those years when she would have been young, there was no refrigeration, so you only had seasonal fruit, and you only had seasonal starch in smaller amounts because you couldn't actually store it for those prolonged. Nowadays, we've got such ability to store things that we're able to basically go from a 2/3 animal-based diet to a diet that is 70% plant-based. And that's why people are getting Alzheimer's and all these diseases. They can't breed or whatever from a young age, from their the middle-aged people now are getting Alzheimer's, not in the 90s, from consuming 1/3 of their diet in plants back then. So it took a much longer time before they got damaged, where now people are getting damaged much quicker at a younger age. They can't even breed. I mean, even Kellogg's understood this. He promoted cereal because he knew that it would actually reduce fertility, reduce sex drive. He knew that because they had these really strange ideas in their head about, sexuality and all that. Really bizarre ideas. What was that? Oh, yes.
My mother would just be going mad if she saw me drinking raw eggs.
Yes.
She still thinks the most dangerous things ever. Raw meat as well. It's like, oh God.
Yeah, look, a lot of people still believe in a lot of that sort of stuff, the mytho and all that. It's popular, it's out there, it's been around for some time, and people still believe it. It's just the reality. Which DNA analysis service do you recommend in terms of quality and privacy? You can forget about privacy. None of them provide any good privacy levels. It's just the reality. None of them, If you want privacy, the best thing you can do is look for a service outside your country. So that's the only way of actually avoid, but the problem is all these companies have to data mine to some extent to basically provide a competitive product. And so where they do sell, the majority of them, where they sell it is to academia, primarily to all pharmaceutical companies or academia to do certain tests. And that's why even 23andMe that I'm with will ask me certain questions, do you have these symptoms or this or that? And the reason why they do that is because they want to improve their data mining in that regard. Now, there is a way of doing it. If you pay with PayPal and you've got some generic name, and then you use like you don't use your legal name, you use some other thing, then it may be. But if you use a credit card, they can link the two together with your account, so they know who you are. So it's not an easy thing in today's digital the level of digital footprints. And so I got to the point I thought about it, and I go, well, I want to know so I could actually manage my own health. I don't really care about health insurance. It's less of a concern in Australia because we do have a good public system, relatively, still, sort of, But I can go in to emergency, and if I need an operation, like I had back in 12 years ago with my heart operation, next day I was in, all paid. So there was no cost to me whatsoever. So our system's a very different system. Where in other societies you have to pay, otherwise you don't get the operation. And if you don't have private health insurance, then it can be an issue. And then obviously you don't want these sort of companies sharing the data with health insurance companies, because that could affect your premiums, could affect whether they give you insurance and cover you. So there's all those implications. That's why I was going to do a video, and then I said, nah, it just leaves me open to all sorts of accusations, and I go, look, I do with 23andMe, do your own research and make your own choices, in that regard. For me, that was an important decision and 23andMe is a pretty good company in terms of the product that it provides. But like all the other companies, they do data mine to keep the cost down. They have to sell the data. Simple as that. So yeah, that's the reality. I can't give you a better option. You have to do your own research, and you may have to go overseas. Now, for me, 23andMe is in the US. They do provide. It's actually part of their company is also in Sweden, from what I understand. So the kits are manufactured in Sweden. They're sent from Sweden around the world, including Australia, where I received it. And yeah, so, but I would say that, yeah, if you're concerned about privacy, consider countries like Switzerland that have got better privacy laws and prevent companies from sharing. So if there's a company in Switzerland that provides a similar service, consider that. There's not many other countries that I can think of at the moment off the top of my head that actually have really good privacy laws. Switzerland has really good privacy laws. That's why even the Proton, the Proton Mail thing that I use is also Switzerland. They have good laws protecting the privacy of emails and stuff like that. So that it's encrypted to prevent NSA or anybody else hacking or reading your emails. Yeah, there's not many other. I can't think. Can you think of any country, Lukey, that would have similar privacy rules? Most of the other ones have just degraded them. In the past, I would have thought of places like the Netherlands and stuff like that. But nowadays, even those have gone just downhill in terms of their privacy, and their governments have really pretty much don't care about their citizens much.
No, it's crazy. And you were talking about PayPal earlier. I can't even open an account, like a PayPal account in Brazil, without submitting a bunch of documentation. So like, it's not even an option to go about that route for me. So it's just crazy.
In the past, when I did set it up, it was much easier than what it is. If I tried to set it up now, it would be much harder. The information that and so I had to validate it with a bank account, and that bank is one of those. It's not one of the big banks. I don't use the big banks. I use a small type of building society, local sort of stuff, which means that they don't. It's sort of they don't share the sort of stuff around. It's because there are, even my superannuation fund is an investor within this bank. So pretty much it's a bit like, the police, credit union, stuff like that as well. They don't share their information with any of the big players or whatever. And so by linking it to that, one, I get the validation that I am an Australian citizen, blah, 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 and all that for PayPal. But at the same time, it's not a company that actually will share that information beyond, which is good in that regard. But, there's what they call the tax man side, because you still have to put your tax file number in. So the tax man still knows the transactions that are happening due to when the tax file numbers, the accountant is used. But, well, you got a digital footprint. You can't really hide entirely. If you want to do that, you've got to set up something like go overseas to one of these other countries and set up like a trust and be the trustee and set up a company in Australia that actually acts as the appointor, appoints you as a trustee, and then you're the, or you can do it the other way around where you are the appointor and you set up a company which you appoint as a trustee and you have control of that. Nobody knows because it's in another jurisdiction, and then you've got a control of a trust, and that trust acts on behalf of you in terms of banking, in terms of that. You don't even have a digital footprint anymore whatsoever. So, and even though I do have a trust, I could have gone down that route. I didn't. Just couldn't be bothered, pretty much. But if people are really concerned about that, I don't know what I'll do in the future. I may, I've got that option. I've been thinking about it in that regard. So, that was an option. I did think about Cyprus at one point, but now even their banking system is becoming too much. There's too much American intrusion now. So where before they were doing a lot of shadow banking for everyone else. And so you could use them for that purpose. And I have used them in the past, but yeah. Did I say that? Oh shit. But anyway, but I wouldn't under any circumstances use them now. Yeah, so anyway, I may have theoretically done that. Move on. Adrian, Merry Christmas to you as well, mate. Nothing like getting into the sun. Beautiful. Just think about all that cholesterol, sulfate, and vitamin D, and all the other stuff. Wonderful stuff. We all get hit by it. It's been going around the office. A few people have been getting it. I just kept my vitamin D levels and taurine up to 6 grams, and pretty much there's been about 4 or 5 people in the office that have had it. And it's been going around, and everybody's just like mad in their masks and everything and whatever. I just walk around and, I was just impervious to it. 10,000 IUs, 6, grams of taurine, and, what COVID? Everybody else is coming down with it. And only once, and that was when I tried to do that idiotic, well, not idiotic, but anyway, doing a vitamin D test experiment. Remember, I wanted to go to baseline, and I took out taurine and took out vitamin D for a month. Yeah. And then Dad had to pick it up from someone and gave it to me. So yes, I had that wonderful experience of having a scratchy throat for about a week. So that was all it is. I didn't, even the Friday, I was sort of feeling a bit under the sun, but it wasn't anything major. And then I just mega dosed on 50,000 IUs of vitamin D, and And pretty much after that, and I had actually done that even before, because Dad had become positive because I'd seen him on the Sunday. I had a meal with him. On Tuesday, his doctor said he's positive, and he gave me a call and said, your dad's positive, and all that. So I had to organise with a chemist to get him his antivirals. He took those, and pretty much, which is a sort of a modified version of ivermectin, and it pretty much within the third day it stomped it, and he was much better. But pretty much since I've been doing the vitamin D and taurine, nothing, absolutely nothing in that regard. So, I mean, even the flu, it's, pretty much that's been some colds and stuff been going around, and I've noticed, but now that the sun's getting a bit, that was just now that I'm out of the office, I didn't even bother today, and I'll probably try get out in the sun once the live stream is finished, and then I'll get a bit, and then tomorrow I'll do a bit of a walk after Christmas lunch, just to work it off a bit in that regard. So yeah, I don't know whether I have to ask Hello Kitty whether the farmers market's open tomorrow. I don't even know. I wouldn't mind grabbing a bit of extra beef jerky. I've got 3. I had 5. I actually used 2 at a barbecue, but I've got 3 now. So I don't know when they're going to get back. So I might have to go and, let's say, purchase a few more. Yes, COVID 1984. Yes. Well, we need a way of locking you up, Wes. If they can't lock you up, you're out there with the feral pigs. That's just not good enough, mate. They need to lock you up. That Biden bloke is doing a good job keeping you guys locked up. It's blissful to live in senility and make decisions. Ari, did you get a chance to look at the Coimbra high dose vitamin D protocol for MS and other autoimmune diseases? Well, Adrian, why don't you ask Loki? Loki basically did the high vitamin D thing and reversed his Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So he eliminated that problem. Autoimmunity is definitely very much associated with low vitamin D. But it's not only vitamin D, because vitamin D regulates has a role in regulating the immune system, but so does taurine. And by combining taurine and vitamin D plus an animal-based diet, you get the synergistic effects of the 3. And so that's what you really need to do. I don't need to look at other people's protocols. I've got my own protocol, and it's a combination of animal-based, vitamin D, whether you're getting it from the sun directly. And Lukey was doing a lot of sunbaking, and that's how he got his. You got to by doing a lot of sunbaking, because you didn't take supplements. You did it the natural way. You got right up to the high of the normal, and pretty much activated all those genes, and were able to silence a number of genes and deal with the problem.
Yep, that's basically it. Best thing I did for myself.
Exactly. And even Terry Walsh, she was doing vitamin D, and she was also doing a lot of organ meats.
Yep.
And organ meats are going to give you a lot of nutrients. So MS, it's not only that, it's also people for a very long time. You don't see it in tribal populations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, MS also has some level of demyelination.
Yes.
Well, if you're not consuming enough animal foods and not getting enough of the precursors for proper nerve function, well, that's going to be an issue in ALS, MS, and a lot of neurological disorders. So one thing you want to do is silence the genes and turn off the autoimmunity with vitamin D, but then you want to regulate the immune system with taurine, and then you want to provide all the nutrient-dense foods that are required. And this is where I view organ meats in higher amounts in these stages is a good thing. Not long-term doing high organ meats continuously, but if you've come with a lot of deficiencies and you're really unhealthy, it's a good thing. Rather than take a multivitamin, just eat a mix of organ meats. You'll get a lot of nutrition and you'll beef up your nutrition and provide the precursors for your enzymes to work properly and everything else. And if you do that, high amounts of organ meats for 6 months and all that to a year, you will really fix up a lot of your health problems. And then after that, you can just go on to muscle meats, some eggs, and a few other things here or there, some seafood or whatever. And that's at that stage, you're in a maintenance sort of stage, sun and, ruminant animals and some other seafood and other things to mix it up a bit in terms of nutrition. But ultimately, most people, what they do is they notice where they get on a carnivore diet and fix up their vitamin D status, so they're getting the nutrients that they need. Things like bipolar and many other things go away. Amber O'Hearn is a good example of bipolar. Autoimmune diseases like the severe stuff that Michaela Peterson had also went away with the same thing. And she also makes sure that she maintains a good vitamin D level plus animal foods. So it's a combo. It's not just one thing. It's a combination of these things. And obviously, getting out in the sun, if there is sun around, exploit that. It's better to do that way. And in the sort of wintry months, you have to succumb. And I usually, the only stuff that I do promote to people is the stuff which is pretty much coconut based. We don't want any of the seed oil based vitamin D stuff. And if you can't get any coconut based, maybe you can't access 23andMe, iHerb or any of that sort of stuff. And then what you can do is you can get those supplements which are like in the the chalky pills. They got vitamin D in the chalky pills, and obviously they don't have any fat because it's a fat soluble vitamin. What you can do is you can consume them with cream. So you swallow them down and take a bit of cream. So that's another option, in that regard. So I use cream with Fisetin as well because it amplifies, it's a fat soluble, as well. So, so I make a lot of use of that.
Harry, I think I'll get going. The sleep is getting to me.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Yeah, you've been traveling for quite some time to get to your parents' place.
Yep.
Have you heard of this guy? Bill Lemenke.
Oh, I haven't heard of him. I think
Okay.
he just made an interview with Dr. Sean Baker.
Oh,
but
did he? Okay, I might have to go and take a look
I
at
don't know who he is. Haven't heard of him prior to that.
Yeah. I've never heard of the name. Yep. I may have to check out and find out.
And before I go, I'll leave the link to Bart's Discord because I haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks for that. Yeah. Do go to Bart's Discord and socialize there with people, or come to my Zoom session and socialize with me for a while, or other people that do turn up.
Yep. And that's it. I wish everyone happy holidays, and thanks for letting me be here, Harry. Always nice to contribute.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thanks for being, and thanks for the contributions. Thanks for also the poster that we had for this, even though the other two characters didn't turn up. Yes, with their computer problems. Somebody's chewing on somebody's cable over there.
Exactly.
Yes. So, well, hopefully we may be able to organise something in the new year. We'll see, or before the new year, like on the 31st. I'll see what he's doing. So whether he's got his stuff sorted out. Anyway, and maybe you're able to drag him on then.
We'll keep talking to him. I'm sure something will work out by then.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for being here. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and your family.
Merry Christmas,
and yeah, I mean, I know your mum occasionally does check out this channel and all that, so do pass on my warm regards to her in that regard. So yeah, take care and enjoy, the festive season, pretty
Yep.
much.
Thanks. My best regards to you and your family.
Thank you. See you, Loki.
Yes. See you all. Bye-bye.
And that was Loki. Yeah, look, Adrian, I will check the person out and find out what he's talking about. So I will be probably pulling the pin in about 20 odd minutes. So just letting people know. Research article on vitamin D resistance as possible cause of autoimmune disease, a hypothesis confirmed by therapeutic high dose of vitamin D protocol. Don't really know. We're talking about here not getting into the excess levels, and we're not talking about, people usually are either we're talking about in the normal range. So people need to test to find out where they are and then stick to the normal range. This is why I don't recommend more than 5,000 IUs for most people. Why? Deliberately, because I don't know where their range is. I regulate mine throughout the whole year, but I basically stick to, like I say, winter, 10,000 IUs, summer, spring and autumn, only the first month and the last month, 5,000 IUs, and then in summer either the beginning of autumn or the end of, or the beginning or the latter part of spring, no vitamin D, just get outdoors. Even being outdoors for for a certain amount of time, you can absorb up to anywhere between 10 and 20,000 IUs. I would never recommend mega doses like 100,000 or more. Forget it. I'm not even involved in that. I don't even agree with that sort of nonsense. That's excessive amounts because it has a hormone-like effect. So why would you put an excessive amount of a hormone-like effect substance in your body? That's just ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. I've never recommended that. And I think that's nonsense. So I don't even care about what this article says. Probably is true. It could also cause massive calcification at very high levels. We're well aware of that. There's plenty of literature. But I would never put forward such protocol because it's ridiculous. But at the level of, 10,000 IUs in winter, 5 in the spring and the autumn, and 0 in the summer, you're not going to go wrong. Or if you're in the tropics like, Loki is, get outdoors all day, do a certain length of, not all day, but you know what I mean, get outdoor for a certain length of time and you'll get to the high normal and you'll sort all these things out. But if you basically, start taking down massive amounts, like, if you get a disease, like when I got exposed to certain things like, COVID or whatever, I mega dosed for a short amount of time, like 50,000 IUs and 20,000 IUs and all that for a couple of days, because I knew that it takes about 3 days for the conversion to happen, so I can actually get the stored form and then it can be activated when I need it. So that's why. But I wouldn't recommend that on a continuous basis. I think anybody that does is ridiculous because it just doesn't make sense. Physiologically, at maximum, you could get 20,000 IUs in summer under certain circumstances. The majority of people are going to be slightly over 10,000. So why would you go any higher? And even like the guy that actually ate a lot of, it's the same thing with retinol. The guy that actually ate shitloads of eggs and a number of other things would be around 10,000 IUs. You wouldn't go higher than that. Also with vitamin A, that would be your maximum. If you go higher than that, there's plenty of studies that show a number of problems, but why would you do that? Because physiologically you couldn't do that anyway, even if you tried, unless you take a supplement at these higher doses. So that's all it is. And many of these people are also deranged. They've got, on a sad diet, they've got a whole lot of other health problems, and you add that to the fire, you're going to get trouble. So yeah, I'm really not into these sort of big mega dosing for long periods of time. Even with boron, I know that there are issues, and I always recommend a short period and then coming down and then cutting it out. There is a time and a place for certain things for certain people, but not everyone, and certain dose dependent. But a lot of people out there is just, they really just push the envelope and think that, more is better. And well, no, it isn't. And that's where I sort of have a difference between a lot of people out there. I prefer people having, real food. And even if you want to get some supplemental stuff, eat some organ meats occasionally, not continuously, occasionally. Eat some seafood. If you don't like organ meats, you can always have mussels occasionally, like once every fortnight, or once a week. What is that going to give you? A whole lot of minerals that you may not be getting sufficient. So, especially if you've been basically for a long time consuming a lot of water and stuff like that, or you don't have enough good mineral density in your body, whatever the situation, depending, you're going to consume a bit more of that. It all has to do, short periods of doing something like that can be beneficial. When you do it excessively for too long, yeah, it can become a problem. Anything can become a problem in excess. Water, oxygen, anything in excess can cause problems in the body. You name it. There's always physiological ranges that we sort of have to gravitate towards. Yep. So yeah. Anyway. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Didn't realize how behind I am on these things. I'll just move down to see if I can get any other questions. G'day, Dean. No comment today. I'm just going to watch on the TV. Too annoying to write on there. Fair enough. I sometimes, will watch, through my projector. I'll just watch YouTube and just sit back and and pretty much don't even bother answering or whatever. So yes, chilly cold out there. Probably the only thing you can do that we can't do is build a snowman. That's probably the only thing. Oh, nice one, George. See, what did I tell you? Some people have a game to go out there and actually, try to see if they can freeze a nut off. Thanks for making me laugh, George. I do not go for war at all. It's a racket. Yes, it is a very profitable racket at that. Good money, actually. If you're an investor, you definitely put in with all these wars happening. You'd definitely be investing in guns and missiles or whatever. Plenty of money to be had. Good returns. Yes, unfortunately, yes. A lot of people end up dying as a consequence. It is a racket. So true, mate. Yeah, look, I'm very much, sort of in a similar way. I'm When it comes to what I call social, I'm more of a social in a sense that I don't even know whether what I do. I don't like a state regulating my life. Pretty much, I don't mind regulating businesses. That's a different thing. That's where I differ with some of the libertarians who don't want regulation on business. And the reason for that is I don't want, some nuclear power stations just dumping in the river any effluent they like, because I live there and it could potentially kill me, while that guy could be living, a rich guy could be living elsewhere. That's the sort of, I don't believe that businesses are equal to humans, even though legislation in America equates a human and a corporation equal standing. I think that's ludicrous that I and a factory are the same thing. What a bunch of garbage. And that a factory should have the same rights as me. No freaking way. I'm the citizen, not the damn factory. That's not a citizen of the state. How come they have equal rights? That's nonsense. So, that's where I sort of think that some libertarians have got really the wrong idea. They seem to confuse and confound. Human libertarianism is one thing. Corporate libertarianism is a completely other thing. I disagree with that vehemently, because it means that these elites can do whatever they like. They can trash. Look what happens in the third world. They just run roller coaster over everyone. Low regulation, full regulation on the citizens, denying them their freedoms and everything else, while business can do whatever they like and just pollute and do whatever. That's where I'm not at all. But in some areas of economics, I do, I don't believe that the state should regulate the market at all. The market should regulate itself, because all it does is it actually corrupts the whole system, and it actually causes more problems. I don't believe in a central bank. Central bank just corrupts the whole system as well. So there's a lot of things that happen in that regard. So I do have issues with those sort of things. But at the same time, while I don't believe in regulating the marketplace, I do believe in regulating businesses the way they operate. I don't want them dumping shit in the ocean or stuff like that. That's what I mean in that regard. So my regulation is specific to the things, because I don't see them as an entity equal to a human, period. That's not negotiable with me. If somebody tells me that a corporation is equal to me as a human, that's what they'll get from me as a response, because that's not the case as far as I'm concerned. They're a completely different entity. They're nothing to do with humans. And so for me, freedom for humans, not for corporations to do as they like. So I'm quite clear on that. But in terms of the market, because in the market, it's us humans that are participating. And we don't want the government to price fix things or stuff like that. Because what they do is they just corrupt the thing. They create shortages on the one hand, or they'll create disincentives for people to invest in those industries, like they have with all these carbon credits and all this bullshit. They've made it such a disincentive. People have been withdrawing from investing in petrochemicals since 2014 onwards. What happened? Our demand for energy hasn't gone down; it's gone up. Population, is still wanting higher living standards. So once we fight over less energy exploration is going down, when the exploration goes down, it means down the track, 10 years down the track, you're going to have less production. And when you're going to have less production, what's that going to do? It's going to increase your energy costs, which means the ability to produce goods and services in the economy are going to go up. You can't price cap the inflation that you generated by either money printing or basically by deliberately making the cost of energy, increasing the cost of energy. These people have done both. That's how friggin' deranged they are. So yeah, I agree with you. Two major political parties have made a mess. If people had direct democracy, like what I believe, they would have made far better decisions, because most people are practical. They want practical solutions, things that work, not bullshit. And they're very quickly to jettison something that's not working very fast, the average person. Where these arseholes, because they sold their soul to a number of corporate elites, they'll do as they're told. So, It's just that all they are is what I call an elected aristocracy. That's all they are. There's no democracy. It's bullshit. It's, real democracy is direct democracy when we, the citizens, control the place, not those arse hats that are in parliaments. That's just basically elected aristocracy, nothing else. Anyway, I've had my little rant. Paleo libertarian. I like that. That's a nice one. I like that one. They should. Some things they should, but it should be a people's government, and we regulate these corporates. So yeah. But I don't think they should ban. If you talk about banning in terms of speech, I'd agree with you. The government should not ban any freedom of speech or expression. As I think it was, what was the French guy? Rosset, I think it was. And he said that he would fight for the right of somebody else that he disagreed with to have the right to speak his mind. And fundamentally, that is what in a free democratic society is, to basically be able to speak your bloody mind. Yes, I sort of vote for similar people, but Babs, in Australia, that have got similar views as well. Not many of them down here. A lot of them are just arse hats, but there are a few that I can vote for. But at the end, I'd want to not clean out the swamp. I want to get rid of the swamp, to be more precise. Because as long as you've got a swamp, you're always going to have some corrupt elements that are going to get into that swamp. You need to get rid of the swamp completely, and that's getting rid of parliaments and presidents and all that sort of stuff. We're more than capable of doing it ourselves in the past. Now with blockchain, we can actually do it with a decentralized distribution system, which can be very well secured. So no, it's not. It's not actually. What the Russians do is they tend to basically use a lot of artillery, a lot of rockets and artillery pieces. They got shit. They got more artillery pieces than any country on the planet. That's how much. And they usually just bomb and bomb and bomb, and slowly weaken out. And if they can't hold onto a piece of territory, they withdraw. They've always done that. They've got space, and then basically they will build up their fuel, their weapons, and like logistics. Once they get to a certain level of logistic support, then they will come at you in waves after wave until they force you all the way back, like they did with the Germans, all the way back to Berlin. And that's how they operate. And that's exactly what they're doing at the moment. They're getting more troops coming into those front lines and building up their forces and bringing in more and more equipment, fuel. So they're getting ready for something absolutely big and all that. Yeah. So no, wave after wave is probably more what the Chinese did, like in Korea, like wave after wave attacking. So that's a very different. Yeah, where they could do that because they didn't have a big logistic chain to support. The Russian forces are more similar to other modern countries, where they are very much tied to logistics. They've got tanks, artillery pieces, and all that, and you need to support them with fuel and sort of the components that make those equipment work, which is the bullets and the rounds that they use and fire. So you need to get a certain level of stuff onto the front line and then use that again. So, and this current general is a very smart, cluey general, and he understands deep battle theory. So, and he's implementing some of the elements of deep battle theory at the moment. So, yeah, if it all plays out the way he intends, it looks like, he's going to crush them completely. The US, probably. Yes, crazy. Yeah, that's true. There is a lot of that nonsense in that regard. Yeah, my view, market's been around for donkey's years. Even before capitalism existed, there was a market. Ancient civilizations have had, since agriculture, since the beginning of civilization, there's been a marketplace. People have gone and sold their stuff. They were commodity markets in there, and then evolved from commodity markets to furnished goods and whatever else. But every single time that actually, even the Roman Empire fell apart because of money printing, too much money printing, So, and that's what's happening today, and it's happened over and over again. You get a central bank and a government that can't control its money printing. So if you want to do something, that's what I liked about the direct democracy with the Athenian Republic. You want to do a war? Fine. Tax the population, in particular the rich, to pay a bit more because they're going to get more of the benefit, and then basically go to war. So they actually made sure that they had the funds. They didn't put their state into debt, have the funds before they conducted that sort of stuff. Where nowadays, what do? They print money and tax the future generations, and they keep on doing that. And you can't do that forever, and it all falls apart. And so, yes, they do blame the market. And I'm not talking about capitalism. All markets, all the way back, even before capitalism existed, all markets, if they are deliberately functioning outside their natural supply and demand interactions with the market players, you will get things that come undone, in a sense. Markets generally will, where I'm talking about regulation is all about, not polluting, not doing these sort of things, so we don't have sort of people in slave labor type conditions. Those are the things that I'm talking about in terms of regulation, which is more about the way things are done in the businesses, not so much, in terms of their impact with the environment and society in that regard. But in the marketplace, definitely keep the pollies out. They got, look at they're doing in Europe. They're putting a price cap. It's ridiculous, even though it's a completely too high, the price cap. So it won't have much of an effect. It's a bullshit price cap, but it's the wrong type of thing, because what it does is it disincentivizes. You put something like that, somebody goes, well, I'm not going to invest in that business because, it's in that field, because there's no, they're actually trying to kill it off. I'm not going to make money. Somebody doesn't put their money in something that's actually being constricted or limited. It's just bizarre, crazy stuff that has actually been happening in Europe and the US, and it's just, and even in Australia, they're doing something similar. It's just fucking ridiculous. I mean, if you want to do something creative, like the following idea. Why don't you say, well, we're gonna, this amount of stuff that's produced in the domestic economy. Let's say you get a few smart people and say, how much energy do we require to create the cost of it, to bring the cost of energy down? If you're looking at a single economy, this amount of energy will actually bring it down. Okay, you say, we'll do that to provide cheap energy. We'll cap the amount that can be exported. So this amount has to stay in the domestic market. which means that the price within the domestic market for that component will go down. You give them you cut their tax on that by half. You give them an incentive. And on the other hand, you say, sorry, you leave the tax at where it is. And on the other stuff, the export stuff, you reduce their tax threshold quite a bit, like half or a third, down to a third. And you do that to encourage them to produce more so they can provide for the international market, but at the same time and all that. So if you're going to manipulate in any way, do it in a smart way, not in a dumb way like these people are, to sort of ramp up production without damaging the industry, and providing some, you could say, international solidarity, if you want to call it that, and that as a short-term measure, because they've stuffed up what they've been doing for a long time to reduce the impact on people. That's a bit of an idea. Or say, beyond this production level, we'll give you a tax incentive. Do something by capping things or trying to force them to restrict the price. All they'll do is just say, well, I can't make enough money by producing more. I'll just pull out of the market. It just makes things worse. These people have got no idea what they're talking about or doing. You've got to incentivize people to do more, more than they would even beyond the market requirements, in order to basically then bring down. Because, if somebody's not going to make money, if I produce more and it means that I'm not going to get the benefit of a big profit bonanza, well, where's the incentive? Well, you've got to give them an incentive either through a tax mechanism or something. But, there's no creativity out there at all. And these sort of things, I don't believe that you should have these interventions in the first place. But when you've actually stuffed everything up with wrong policies, then you have to do something. You can't have people, starving to death, or people, ending up, freezing to death. So you've got to do something, but do something that basically makes more sense, that encourages more production, because you're giving them incentives, rather than doing something that discourages them, like putting price caps and shit like that. So it's ridiculous what they are doing. They can't even think creatively, even with their stupid regulations. It's, beyond the pale. Anyway, guys, I've had my little rants. There's another question there, Troy. Benefits of sauna, your thoughts before a week out, after, how long per session and all that. Look, there's a bit of research out there showing that it has some hormetic benefits. But as I said, exercise can also give you a bit of hormesis, and exercise also can get you to sweat a bit, which has a detoxifying effect. It's cheaper as well. And it also makes you fitter, but it will make you hungrier as well. But if you're on a species appropriate diet, then you don't really have a problem there, because you'll get satiety from the animal foods. But on the other hand, sauna can also be beneficial in similar sort of ways. I wouldn't do it excessively, but occasionally, but it probably has a bit of a benefit. It has been shown to be able to assist with detoxification, getting some stuff that may be in your system out of your system as well by sweating it out. So excessive amounts, probably like anything, would probably cause some issues, problems, because it's not something naturally we would have done. But, it has some benefits if it's not done in excess. But again, most of the research that's been done has been done by the industry rather than independent. So we can only go on that. And as I said, there are cheaper options, which is exercise. So anyway, quickly just pan through to see if I'm any one of those little nothing I can see obvious. Loss is asking about tea, What are you doing? So I've mowed the lawn very angrily. Yes. Anyway, shit happens. Yeah, it does have issues as well. Restream does have. I've had a number of issues with Restream where it's stuffed up my live streams, or it's like cut it, and I had to do a part 1 and part 2 in one case, or in one case I just gave up. Yeah, so there can be issues with all those, mate. You know, I can't see much else here. Ralph's here. G'day, Ralph. Merry Christmas to you. Mainly carnivore, taurine, and magnesium has dropped my previously extremely high blood pressure to now being too low. Something is working. No blood pressure meds now. This stuff works. Yes, it does. It definitely does. Look, it's what it does is, probably take out the magnesium. Probably you're getting a bit too much magnesium now, because remember the taurine regulates all the ions, and if you get too much magnesium, you may end up with slightly lower blood pressure than you can get into the too low levels, and that's not a good thing as well. So I had to take out, because my taurine brought my blood pressure all the way down as well. And then it went a bit too low, and I was supplementing with magnesium and potassium and a few other things. And then I took those out, and then it sort of went back to the normal range. Because what taurine's trying to do is regulate all the ions and fluids and get them back into homeostasis to the normal range. Not too low, not too. So if your blood pressure is low, like my sister's younger sister, she's always had very low blood pressure. She used to pass out. And women suffer from this more than men. And by taking taurine and eating more meat, because she was vegetarian for 25 years, fixed her asthma, but also fixed her blood pressure issues, her low blood pressure. It's come up to, it's not smack in the normal range, it's still slightly lower than the normal. She's all, but it's much closer to the normal range. So she doesn't have those episodes anymore. She doesn't pass out. So it's, she's doing much better in that regard. Yeah, it definitely does work it's an osmolyte. It's the most ancient of ancient, originated in early life in the oceans, and it basically regulated pressure within the cell. That was its first job. So it's really good at doing osmolytic effects in the body. So yeah, it's perfect for that thing. But I'm glad you're not on meds anymore, and you've sorted out all that. Remember, magnesium, potassium, we get enough to the diet. We don't excrete as much. And if you're getting taurine, it will regulate all of it. And if you're really concerned, once a week, have mussels. Just cook some mussels. Have a mussel soup. Cook that with a bit of, put a cream in it, make it nice and creamy, give it some flavor, and have some mussel soup. And you'll get a lot of these minerals. And it'll be like having a mineral supplement once a week. So, and you're going to get a whole lot of other nutrients. You're going to get high B12. You're going to get a lot of different nutrients in mussels, are very nutrient dense. And it's going to be much more natural and better for you in that regard. So consider that as an option, and jettison the magnesium supplement completely. It's a waste of money anyway. Anyway, I am out of here, guys. I'm going to go right to the bottom, because people are going to be saying, see ya, and all that sort of stuff. Let me get to the bottom. G'day, Indy. How are you? Merry Christmas to you as well. I hope things are going well. Drop me a line in the new year just to see how you're going. Ban Parlus, good to see you, mate. Anybody else that's dropped in late? Oops. Oh, Sue's here as well. Not a problem. Merry Christmas to you as well, Sue. Ban Parlus. Jared, how are you, mate? Good to have you here. And I may have missed, if I look, oh, there's Stuart, Stuart as well. Yep. Yeah, they're out in the sun. That's right. Animal foods and all that. Yeah, exactly. So it's just that now we live in a internal environment. We're not always outdoors. And so in winter, we may need a bit to provide a bit of assistance to our immune system because we're in a much more toxic environment than what we used to be. So these are the things that we sort of have been forced to do because of circumstances. Up syndrome, how are you, mate? God, it's been a while. And anyone else? Teresa's here. G'day, Teresa. And anyone else? Eduardo, how are you, mate? And have I missed anyone? Just quickly going to go through. You guys support me. I like putting yours on. So anyway, I think that covers everyone. Oops. Christmas, how are you? Merry Christmas to you as well. And I think I've clicked on everyone. Merry Christmas to you as well, mate. Lost Dragonflies. And Shelley, always a pleasure. Merry Christmas to you and your family. And thanks for being here, guys. I hope your Christmas day is really nice and you have a lot of fun and maybe even a bit naughty after in the evening on Christmas Day. Yes, you know what I mean. Enjoy yourselves, you carny, lovely people. And I will see you guys in the new year, unless Bart sorts out his computer issues and we may have something a bit shorter like New Year's Eve. So cross your fingers and see what happens. So we may do something. I may do something, or he may do something. We'll see. I don't know yet. So I'll send him an email and find out what his plans are, because he may be going somewhere. So But anyway, Merry Christmas to all you. God bless, and thank you for being here. I appreciate your time and your support this year. It's really, been. I've enjoyed it. I've had fun, and and it gives me a reason. I'm nearly at 3,000 now subscribers, and it gives me, when I look at that and I look at the support, I'm grateful and thank you. I really appreciate it, because without you guys, I can be sitting here just talking to nothing. It's not one person, it's a whole lot of people that make a community, that make a channel as well, which is a sort of a smaller version of a community. And without you guys, it just doesn't happen. And without your support and sort of asking me questions and and motivating me to research things and look into things and stuff like that, it means that we can share more. You guys can actually, myself, because by being motivated, I learn more for myself. You guys learn from my research, and we end up benefiting. It's a mutual benefit, and in this time, with the way the world is, good people need to stick together and help each other and support each other and provide information, because there's a lot of other people out there, reckless people and very dangerous people, that are always trying to muck it up for everyone, unfortunately. Anyway, take care. Enjoy your time with your families, and treasure it. It's really important, because sometimes we forget. It's like when people pass away or stuff, it's after the fact you realize, I wish I spent more time. So do appreciate these moments because they enrich us. So anyway, before getting into again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Take care and enjoy yourselves, and see yous. I'm out of here.